Yes. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome to the Technocrat Live. I'm your host, Matt Newhall, and we've already started drinking. Well, they did. I will too soon. This is the show where I bring on intelligent, learned, experienced people, and they teach me how to spell.
Should I leave then?
No, you
no, well, you just have to be able to spell better than me. That's the only requirement. It's very low. It's a very low bar. So my guests tonight are Izzac Falcon.
Hi.
Jeannie Boyle.
Hello.
And Rocco Laudadio.
Hi.
And they are a hacker extraordinaire, a lawyer, and one of the founders of LidMug and an admin engineer.
Yeah.
So, and I'm Matt Newhall. And I need no further introduction because you'll get to know me really well on this show. All right. So, unfortunately, Ed couldn't make it tonight. If he does show, Ed, if you're listening, come to the show. It's okay. Stuff happens. Assuming your family's well and everything's going okay. All right. So if you can come, and if not, next time. I wanted to say thank you. We have a few new subscribers to our various channels. So, yay! Suckers. Anyway, tons of news, so we're going to do some news before we get into our questions. There is a buttload of tech news ever since the show started, so I think they personally have, I'm not just looking for it, it has increased markedly, especially the last month or so. I mean, it's bonkers. Let me just read them to you. So first of all, how many people in here knew that Gab's source code is now open source?
did not know that.
I barely knew that. I just caught it in a post, luckily. You knew. Nice. Very well done.
I'm actually not familiar with Gab.
So Gab is a competitor with Twitter that was started specifically to be a conservative competitor with Twitter because people said that conservatives were all getting kicked off of there. So when they opened it up, promptly the worst scum and villainy from the entire internet decided to converge there and start shit because they had been kicked off the other platforms. And yeah, but it also is a great free speech platform because you can, if you have something to say that's interesting and not vile, you can also say it there. And it's become kind of like a two-fronted ideological fight. Actually, the funny thing is, it's a funny story. There are people from every political stripe on Gab, and there's actually a Mastodon refugee on Gab who contributed to the code of Gab, and that's how I found out that they were open source, that I missed the announcement. So Mastodon is a highly liberal platform like Twitter. It was actually open way before Gab was or anybody else, and they kicked him off, I guess, for not towing the line or something. He was very heavy on free speech. I'm the same way. I get into trouble every place because I'm like, free speech or bust. That's the only choice to me. Yeah, and then he contributed to the code, and I went, what's going on here? And he posted about it, and someone else posted about him contributing to it. They're like, look, a liberal just fixed our code.
Isn't Mastodon mostly self-hosted, though?
Yeah, but it seems that it's admin, it's server and admin based, so whoever the admin of that particular server is has basically God mode over whoever's interacting on that server.
Oh, okay.
So you tie yourself to a local server. So whatever so if they decide, and there's no like code of conduct for, like sticking to legal issues as the criteria for kicking people off or anything. Yeah. It's just what they feel like doing.
It took us 30 years and we reinvented IRC.
I've seen people spin up. I've seen people make Mastodon servers who just be like very, very like specific topic type discussion place.
Right, and usually that's the justification for kicking people off. But the problem is, like there's no room for anything but specific topics now. Yeah, so it was a design. It seems like it was a flaw in the design. So
I'm not really surprised that a very liberal person helped establish the code for that.
Yeah, I'm not.
Especially if they're,
I'm not either, and I wanted to bring that up specifically to say that I'm surprised that, people. I've seen some people. I will never ever say who it was, but I've actually been called a Nazi for having an account on Gab.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean some people are completely lunatics. I am not a freaking Nazi. If you just try to argue that one. Good luck. Yeah, so it was.
I'm not seeing it.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Talk about this.
I'm sorry.
Oh, so anyway, enough about that. But I think you get the idea. You know, it was people get very upset and get very, very. I'm independent, and I've fought hard to be independent because, to me, having two, ideally three, but at least two parties that are fighting each other and don't agree on things is more important than backing one of those parties up. I think that's the bigger risk right now.
Right, the value.
Is that we're just going to that it's just going to tip over to one side and we're going to have no discussion, and that terrifies me because that's not a republic. We're doomed then. It's just a matter of time. All right, so interestingly, they released it under something I didn't know about called the GNU Affero General Public License. So apparently this is the GPL license. If you didn't know, if you know about GPL but you haven't heard of this before, that's what it is. It's the GPL license. It's the library license for GPL, which is what all Linux is under. All right, so also in the news, AMD is now faster than Intel.
Wow.
For the first time in 10 years. I literally just built the machine, did the specs, and got a discount because they lowered their prices.
Intel did?
Intel lowered their prices.
Oh, Intel lowered the prices.
Yeah, yeah. I got an
I had to do
i9 for
something.
cheaper than it was for a couple of months.
Is it equally as stable?
Yeah, so they're actually, I shouldn't say that they really beat them. They only beat them in some things. So AMD's chips are faster in some things. Intel's chips are, but price for price,
they're pretty usually.
well, price for price before they lowered their prices, it was pretty comparable.
Is AMD really able to compete on the horrible hardware vulnerability benchmark, though? I mean, Intel's really got that going for them.
Right, right.
AMD's got some work to do.
Yeah, that's true.
We need some backdoors in there.
You really can't get the best benchmarks until you let the best computer expert or your favorite technocrat simply walk into your machine and take the benchmarks whenever they want.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's not really fair otherwise.
It's important to get those side channels in there so you can really get the most out of your.
And they'll do it for the low price of only mining several Bitcoin on your electric bill for several years. So discount.
So we'll be lucky if they even get that much out of it.
Yes, dripping sarcasm.
Yeah, in general, I think the difference is Intel is still faster for single thread, for single core
Right, and
processes.
Intel is generally more games than not, it seems like, of the games that people care about.
Well, most games are like one or two threads. Like they don't really.
Right, exactly. So if you just need a workstation that's going to be doing a lot of jobs at once, thank you so much. Steve's the man, Steve's the man. Shout out for engineer Steve's. Woo, woo, woo.
Steve, thank you.
What?
Sweetener?
No, I'm good.
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good. I'm ready to go on pure diesel, man. So anyway, Intel's fast for some things, AMD's fast for others. So, but this is the first time in 10 years they've even been able to pop their head over the water. So, pop.
Well, if you're doing server-side stuff, most of that stuff's multi-threaded. So,
Right.
Which means AMD is going to.
AMD has an advantage in almost everything but the gaming market right now. So Intel's got some catch, and it doesn't look like they have anything on the roadmap to catch up. So yeah, AMD is going to be selling some chips like wildfire. Okay, so IRS just sent out 10,000 cryptocurrency letters.
That is interesting.
Not to me. Woo.
Yeah, not you. Nice. Well, you probably mind your stuff. Be careful, man.
Like
They may
demand
find you. What?
Demand letters? Like what kind of letters?
No.
Gentle reminders.
Saber rattling.
There's 3 levels of aggression.
Okay, let's hear it.
I never read them myself, but I saw links to them.
Okay.
Basically, last year, Coinbase was subpoenaed to give the U.S. government the data on anyone that sold more than $20,000 worth of Bitcoin since founding their account.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
a Bitcoin.
I got a letter.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
I got one of those letters.
Did you
yes,
really?
yes. So I have actually filed. So I just wanted to say something about this. I got a letter too, and actually I read about the news after I got the letter.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
but I got one of the letters from the first round either. It's just a form letter, so it probably means nothing. It probably just means, hey, you're on this list. But this is the second year I filed my taxes with Bitcoin in the description of what the capital gains were. They're not even cross-checking it.
No, they're not. It's just based on who they received over that bar from Coinbase.
Right. So I'm not worried about it yet. But yeah, if they go to the next step. I mean, I was part of that Ron Paul thing where they were going after conservatives because I had voted for Ron Paul in the primary.
What do you think the purpose of them sending that letter is?
I think it's just trying to scare people into turning. So here's how it works. So the way that cryptocurrency, the way that you can bust people, and I've been warning people about this from the beginning. I kind of figured it out, and I've been warning other people. And then we can talk a little bit about anonymity. Thank you, Isaac, for your wonderful insights on anonymity. The problem is that the blockchain is pseudo-anonymous, but it's just like any mystery that like a police officer might work on. The more clues you get closer to the crime, the more you know about the crime. So the more transactions you get who they were and you know what they were doing, the closer you can get to any other transaction.
Are they like rattling chains then?
They're trying to rattle chains to get people to turn themselves over and then pay the back taxes so that they can get more leads so they can bust more people.
Got it.
They're probably the first year they sent out the letters and they made the ruling. Well, I don't think they sent out letters that year. The first year they made the ruling.
This was the first year of the letters, I think.
Yeah, no, this is the second. They had sent letters the last time too.
Okay.
Yeah, they did, but they didn't send them right away. This time they sent the letters first, and then the announcement came. But the first year they made the tax capital gains announcement about how it was going to be taxed. Before that, they didn't even tax. They just, I don't know, whatever, do whatever, dude. And then it was okay. We're going to tax it, and then that year. I think they sent out. They said they got 13,000 people from Coinbase. Nothing else about it, but only like 80 people filed taxes that year for Bitcoin gains.
That's not
so
really...
13,000 candidates,
right.
80 people.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit exaggerated.
Yeah, it is a bit exaggerated.
I know for a fact that I've been claiming it almost every year, except for the couple years I didn't sell anything.
Right. Well, you may not, but you weren't in that because you probably aren't transacting enough.
I probably wasn't even on that list in the first place because I never sold enough.
Right. Exactly. You never sold enough. But I'm saying, for the amount of people, remember that Coinbase could be anyone in the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone in the United States.
That's true. Those 13,000 people.
But even if it's
how many
only,
of them were even American?
Even if it was 3,000 people, I mean, we're talking about a fraction.
That's a very small fraction.
Yeah, it's a very small fraction. So people still think they can be anonymous, and if they think they can be anonymous, they can be anonymous. It's like a self-perpetuating thing. So they're trying to rattle the chains and shake them up,
That's
get
what
them
it
scared.
sounds like to me.
Yeah. So if they ever come after me, though, I want to say, holy cow, I've been upfront and honest about this from the beginning to the point where people have laughed at me. If they come after me, run, because no one's safe. I couldn't have been a better citizen. All right, so Microsoft tried to screw its Action Pack partners. So Action Pack is a system where you can you pay them a flat fee and you get access to all of their products. Well, for say a consultant or a person who is rolling out an infrastructure for a business. So basically they said we're going to end the program, and everybody using the program, who of course put it into their business model, said, I don't want to pay $10,000 in software license fees for all the things that I'm doing. And they went, no! And then Microsoft said, sorry, we didn't mean it. So, but anyway.
Reasonably relied
I had mentioned to someone that I had a glowing review of Microsoft and how great it was, and yeah, not really. This is something that they actually did. They've been doing a lot of great stuff lately, but they definitely screwed this one up. So,
which is very surprising because I can't imagine, 10 years ago, I would never imagine that you would say nice things about Microsoft.
There's been a ton of great news about them. I mean, I can't call them a bad guy just for this one thing. First of all, they're doing a great job with Minecraft. That's like the least consequential thing I could say. But I mean, they really could have ran it into the ground or jacked the license fees, or there's 1,000 bad things they could have done.
Screwed it up.
They could have screwed it up. They have an open source. They're working on an open source election verification system. They're working on an open source blockchain federation system. I mean, the things that they're giving to the community. Yeah, I forget the name of it.
I mean, they've come a long way.
A federated blockchain, doesn't it?
Yeah, they're going to be using blockchain for authentications. So to use the blockchain authentications to be for federated logins for between whatever, multiple organizations.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how a distributed ledger helps that, but sure.
Well, I think the idea is that you don't have to count on a Twitter to want to revoke your check mark because they don't agree with your politics or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see it as a bad thing. I mean, if they're just dumping open source code out there.
A distributed ledger of password hashes?
I guess. I don't.
I don't see what the economy is. So I don't see. Right? You need an economy to get the miners interested.
Well, that's if you're doing.
Holding on
that's
to
if you're doing a decentralized.
replicating it. Peer-to-peer systems system, how would you get
That's
them?
that's only if you're doing a decentralized ledger. It doesn't have to be decentralized.
Right.
You could have centralized blockchain.
Frankly, I don't care because it's
call
open
that a
source. So
database.
Yeah.
if it's awesome and everyone's using it and it's centralized, then someone will make it decentralized if it's ever a problem. So you just automatically win with me when it's open source. So I just can't see how you can go wrong. What?
Just seems weird.
It is weird.
Federated.
Yeah, a lot of the new.
Look, you think I'm not
It's
a
buzzword
fanboy.
compliant.
I'm not blind. I'm ready for evil. I'm waiting for the evil. Like, where's the evil, dude?
What
Right.
about in GitHub? Are you still waiting for Evil in GitHub? That's a Microsoft acquisition.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, everyone forgets that.
Yeah, thanks. I did forget that. Yeah, there was a thing recent, just in the news with them, where their GitHub is going to be honoring some trade embargoes. So GitHub was actually how a lot of free Western organizations, including the Times, since we were talking about the Times before, get around trade embargoes by basically dumping all their free data into a platform where if you shut this off, you don't have code. You can't access Linux, things like that. So, but yeah, apparently they're playing ball with the bad guys. So,
Well, you get to be a China and start looking at free
all right, two bad
software.
things on Microsoft.
A couple of I
Yeah.
don't know. It's GitHub still GitHub. I don't understand why GitHub is a thing either, but
Yeah.
the whole thing about Git is that you shared with everybody else.
Right,
You don't
right.
have to clone from a single point source.
Yeah, I mean, GitHub's one PR disaster away from Exodus. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
another-
surprised they've gotten away with what they got away with. Just what we're talking about now. I'm surprised there isn't a
GitHub's one of
backlash.
those things where it's very compatible with other systems. So if they piss off enough people, they'll just leave without a second thought.
Right, yeah. Well, on the other hand, there is a social network aspect to it. I think this is what might be what's going on.
That is what it's about.
You're right. There's a social network aspect to this. So if you're looking to hire a coder, you go into GitHub and see what they did. Right, so,
Put it on the resumes.
Yep.
Yep. So like GitHub is your you do not put your resume on GitHub. GitHub is your resume. So
wow.
yeah. So
I had a client who had a whole development team, and GitHub has occasionally gone down in the world, and they decided they couldn't do any work because they couldn't push and pull from GitHub. It's like, guys, do you understand how Git works? You can push and pull from each other. It's a distributed version control system, but I mean, when GitHub
we better wipe the machine and reinstall.
yeah,
No, that's the wrong thing to do.
if you were using CVS, I can understand the server being down, that being a problem, but like you just talk to one another, and when GitHub comes back, one of you pushes up to GitHub. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, how do we look at the code? Just never mind. Let's move on.
Oh,
Sorry.
We've triggered him.
You pull.
We're triggering Isaac. Oh no. grep. Imagine the grep.
It's good.
Regex.
Yeah.
Oh, regex. I
Everything's
see
fine.
everything. I know
You're
what I'm
okay.
looking for. It's quick.
Anywho.
All right. So, interesting thing. So, Chris Hughes? Chris Hughes. Sorry, Chris Hughes. Is one of the founders of Facebook. So apparently he's like one of like 6 or so founders of Facebook, along with Zucker and the Winklevosses and such. Has basically said Facebook must die.
Wow.
So, yeah. So he basically he's helping New York State Attorney General and a bunch of federal organizations to try to break up Facebook, give them guidelines on how they could do
like,
it.
Why?
He just
The,
sees
privacy concerns.
too much power, privacy problems, the usual terrifying litany of, Borg-like.
They do hoard a lot of information and
I mean,
wield a
I'm
lot
kind of having like Stack Overflow trying to describe all the things that are wrong with Facebook because
It adds a huge value, though. There's a huge value to Facebook.
oh, there's a huge value to Facebook.
It's a great way for like-minded people to gather in like groups and stuff like that.
I'm proud to say I've never made a Facebook account.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't made a Facebook account until a couple years ago either, so I completely avoided it.
Okay.
And and then I gave in because it was the only way I could contact some people.
Right,
So-
that's the other thing. So you're able to contact people. I mean, it's
This
very
is the
popular-
interesting thing. So whenever you have a network effect, like a social networking platform, the first people in are volunteers. They're more than happy. They're happy customers. The last people in are basically slaves. They're just forced to join this thing because it's the only way they can communicate with the people.
Right. Well, I mean, the bottom line is, how are we going to make something, make it big and great? I mean, of course,
Gab. It's open source.
Right. Eventually, the same thing will happen with Gab. Like,
Well,
this is like a wash, rinse, repeat.
So actually, all right, well, just cheat and go to the end of the thing. So the real question is, do we have a right to fork? Are human rights real, and do we have a right to fork? I think that one of the things that open source and Linux has established is that, yeah, we have a right to fork. That this is like part of what it is to be human. That this is inadvertently, I didn't call it this back then, but this is written into the Constitution. This is written into the constitutions of Western countries. That all the other rights are really just rights defending the right to split off from an organization and say, you guys don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to do it my own way, right?
Yeah, but that
because corruption's real and it grows, over time.
The same could be said for Facebook. You have the right to leave. I'm not saying that we shouldn't regulate them in a way that makes it so they're not an evil
we totally have a
empire.
right to leave, and actually, in a way, shows like this, people communicating through video, because this is a much harder to censor platform, is people leaving.
Right.
You just left, in a way, at least for a few hours.
Right.
So
I'll be back.
I'll be back. Please don't punish me. but that's really what it's. Mm-hmm. That's where. So I mean, I think we do. Yes, I think that it actually is. It's hard to prove, it's like one of those, it's one of those things where are these truths have to be self-evident kind of moments. I mean, I could prove it, but we'd have to have the same assumptions.
You could prove.
Which is way out of the scope of the news.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, so. Oh, you guys are surprisingly quiet on this. I know I can see the gears going, but you're not saying anything. Okay, anyway.
There just is a value to Facebook. I don't know that I want to see it dead.
No, I don't want to see it dead.
Yeah.
I don't want to see it would be dead already if I wanted it dead.
Mr.
At least if Isaac wanted it dead, it'd be dead already.
I don't care enough to even talk about it.
See, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same here.
Wow.
I don't have enough exposure to Facebook to even care.
Right.
People seem to get really upset about a thing that they can walk away from or be a part of, and it really doesn't matter. There's no Facebook police forcing you to attach your eyeballs to the constantly scrolling news feed of insipid remarks and terrible photographs of things nobody cares about.
This is the thing. So the question is, are technocrats supposed to be good stewards? And I mean, I don't know. I actually don't. This is one of the things I want to explore with the show.
Are we
stewards of other people?
Well, the thing is,
not everyone's a technocrat, and if it's a technocracy, and we're supposedly running the show, is it our responsibility to try to look out for people who don't understand the technology and maybe never will?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think if you're in a position of power or in a position of like having more information than most people, absolutely, I think you have some sort of
good
moral.
Very good. We'll take care of the little people.
Yes, take care of them.
So I mean, that's the one hand. On the other hand, is it even possible to take care of people?
I mean, advocating and supporting the right laws.
We could try, right?
Yeah, try.
The expectations low.
Yeah.
Positive vibes high.
Explaining to people some of the more complex.
Or the Morlocks can just wind up crawling to the surface every so often to take one of the and consume them.
It isn't a coincidence that we have the show at night.
A perfectly serviceable model,
Yeah.
We'll keep your society going. We just need to take one of you out every so often.
Yeah, we have a small population dislocation. We're going to assist you with that, because it can be problematic to food source allocation. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I make the Morlocks sound like politicians? All right. So that was cool. I like where this is going. You guys are uppity. This is a great panel so far. Floppy drives are done.
That kind of makes me sad.
That phrase, the way you said it.
I didn't even
Floppy
know they
drives
were
are
still
dead.
here.
Linus Torvald said.
He took him out of the kernel.
Took him out of the kernel. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So because Linux is usually the go-to platform for weird applications.
But who's going to be hurt by this?
I don't know. Aren't you mad? Don't you miss floppy drives? Aren't you
Not really.
nostalgic?
I mean,
So I actually have a question about this.
So you guys are the same as Linux.
Yeah, kill it.
I want to know.
I don't use Linux. I don't have a
Who
problem.
out there and comment? Who out there still uses floppy drives?
I mean, one of the things with Linux is
I'm just kidding. No, it's a joke. It's a joke.
one of the things with Linux is it can
It's going
support
to be retro
older
now.
hardware.
It's like
but
photographs.
Yeah.
one of the things with Linux is they can support older hardware, but they're already like moving away from all the 32-bit stuff. So
Right,
even
right.
that's going away. And what 64-bit computer has a floppy drive?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're not jacked if you have floppy disks you still want to read. You can actually buy USB floppy disks, so that seems to be the solution they're pointing people at. And
Right.
it's just buy the
Yeah,
USB work
they're just killing the drivers for that cable. I don't even know what it's called. What's the? No.
The floppy controllers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has its own controller cable.
There's just putting it
It
into
looks like a narrower IDE
It's
cable.
not. It hasn't been on a motherboard in 5 years. at
more
least.
more importantly,
Longer.
like there's really no difference. I mean, they're taking it out of support and maintenance for a thing that hasn't done anything in 20 years. Like
That's
there's no
not true. I have heard some excellent floppy drive music.
Well, that's true. That's true. I'll take- servo tunes are quite good, but there's been no development in floppy technology for
Right.
25 years.
Right.
So I've
if you
never-
really want it, just forward port the driver. Nothing's changed.
Did anyone ever solve the zip click of death? I'm just curious.
Which one is that?
You know,
The zip
remember
drive
zip
click of
drives?
death?
And your data's gone.
Gone.
Yeah. No. See, and that's why
zip
people
drives.
don't care that floppy drives
You just
are dead.
deserved it.
That's why people are like, don't care.
So I never actually used a floppy drive on Linux before. When I started using Linux, floppy drives were already like,
Noob.
yeah. But
He's not. He's,
no, my question.
he's really good.
my question is, so I know like with when you put a drive in a Linux, you have to mount it, and I know with CD drives it can detect when a new CD is inserted and it could auto mount.
Yeah. And even though it's
Floppy,
not active,
does the
it's still
floppy
mounted.
hardware have any sort of auto
Nope.
detect? Oh, a new drive is in. No, it doesn't, right?
Yeah, well, so no, it's non-stateful. So you can pull the
See-
disk out and you go to access the disk, and it goes.
Yeah. So you would actually even if in its current support state, you have to drop the command line and mount it manually before you can use it, right?
Right, and then you can still pull the disk out in the middle of it and screw everything up.
Okay.
Yeah. Good luck with that. It sucked. I could see why Linux was running for the hills. It was a good academic exercise anyway. So,
I mean, there's perfectly good uses for old technology. I've been trying to figure out a way to put together a paper tape punch. The reader's easy, but to actually have a paper tape punch for like Bordeaux code paper tape,
really?
yeah, it's a great way to move key material.
I don't think I understood anything of what you just said.
So way back in the day,
like any of it.
like
It's funny. I immediately got it. She's like, "What?" It's just
Is
a
it
different
like
world.
a ticker
Wait,
tape
so you're
stuff?
still
It's a ticker.
So back in
Using a
ticker
ticker tape.
basically,
Okay.
yeah.
Like
You know, it says-
way back.
You know how like a
way back. Why are you doing
steganographer.
this? What are you doing here today?
Imagine a steganographer.
God.
I'll connect your worlds.
Okay.
Okay.
Now imagine that her typing an encryption key.
Yeah, so way back in the 60s, you had the PDPs and DEC machines and so forth have paper tape readers and punches. And it's Bordeaux coded, literally just dots on a line, and you could come up with byte. And I would hand
learned
you,
about this in school.
and you could have an entire program that fits in like a stack of paper tape. It
Yes.
usually zigzagged across. You feed it in, and it just goes, and it goes byte.
Do you have one of these things?
You can build one out of LEDs really easily. The reader. A punch is a whole other ball game because there's like an electromechanical thing. You have to get rid of the chads and the whole 9 yards. But
Okay.
for cryptographic key material, it's not many bytes.
Good Chad maintenance.
Yeah.
Good Chad maintenance.
Chad kind of triggers me.
Oh, back in Florida,
That triggers
since
everybody.
2000.
Yeah. But I'm moving on.
We all
I'm moving on.
we all have terrible.
Saw it off.
But yeah, for a cryptographic key material, right? Like, it's 256 bytes. It's 1024 bytes. That's not much paper tape. I hand it to you, you run it through your reader, and then you toss it in the fire, and it goes away. Very, very far away.
You know, I hadn't really thought about that aspect of paper logging. But yeah. That's pretty good. So really, actually, because I always thought of paper logging as the invulnerable way to do logging, so that no one could turn it back.
Well, I've done that.
But of course,
too.
you could just burn the goddamn building down if you can get one of the components to overheat.
Well, at that point, you don't really care who's been intruding in your system. Well, because the data still went out. But no, I used to find you can't find them on eBay anymore. But like old Oki data printers with a typewriter ribbon, so you have to still find ribbons for these damn things. But typewriter ribbon will be forever. We'll never get rid of typewriter ribbon.
Yes.
You can't find them on eBay for like less than $100 anymore. You used to be able to find them for like $18.
Nice.
That
sucks.
I had clients who to this day have like a cabinet somewhere in their office that will occasionally go,
Yeah, you know what? You know what?
God.
and nobody knows why.
You know what? I mean, this is a kind of an interesting side conversation. Sorry. This is kind of an interesting side conversation. VCRs are also really overpriced on eBay. So in case you don't know, VCRs are no longer manufactured. So
People are buying VCRs?
Yes.
well, yeah, I mean, I have a
There are
huge
libraries
VCR tape
and
collection. I didn't throw
libraries
it
of
out.
things that need to get read.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
shocking.
VCRs are stupidly
I'm not
expensive.
buying the entire Disney collection again, for my kids, because they're boys, they're older, they don't care that much. They just want to see this stuff once. They're not going to watch it 300 times.
Right. But then
So we just pop in the VCR, watch it. Okay, you watched it. Next.
watch it on YouTube.
But there's lots of VCR. People shouldn't just have to abandon their media because the format changed. That's crazy.
I mean, it's been a long time. I feel like this is like the floppy disk conversation.
So what you're saying is,
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I feel like this is just another manifestation of it.
yeah, except people actually like VCR tapes.
Unless you're talking about rotary phones. Now, rotary phones are a different issue. Like, I feel
look who's weak now.
You like the pulse code, huh?
Yeah, you like dialing 0
I
8 times.
I do. I don't know. I'm a glutton for punishment. I like watching people look at it and not know what to do.
That's awesome. Those are good videos. Yeah. That's really
I
great.
actually dug a rotary phone out of my attic like 6 months ago and just fixed it up to get it working again.
Nice.
Nice.
Kind of fun.
Did you?
That was one of the few
Spectacular.
legit.
Put it in your front door, and then that's your doorbell. Like tell them dial number, and see. Watch them try to figure it
Yeah, I
out.
didn't have to do anything too crazy. I just had to solder on like
Good
a new
punk video.
jack because the jack was like damaged.
Oh, okay.
So it was just a solder job and it was
It's
working.
okay, Steve. You can laugh. It's funny.
You have to have a house
We're
line,
even.
though.
Yeah.
That was actually one of the few legit things in the movie Hackers, like straight up legit, not like slightly modified, was when he dials from prison by flashing the switch hook. Put the pulses into the
What
system.
movie was that? I remember that.
That was Mover Hackers.
All right.
They also had a red box, but the noises were all wrong.
Nice.
A red box, not like the red box.
So there are like
not the Red
3
Box
hackers
movie.
in the whole world that are just like, the muzzle flashes are wrong. They're wrong. There's no sparks. Ah! chewing on their shoe.
Well, there's the scene in the movie Sneakers where they fire the gun and it's obviously stovepiped, and the guy who really should know better is still feeling very threatened.
Yes.
If you want a firearms mistake in a hacker movie.
Yeah. There you go. So I didn't. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I just watched some. There's a ton of firearm mistakes out there. They're really bad. Anyway, nobody knows anything about that because we're in New York. So that's not an acceptable topic in New Yorkistan. So
The Democratic People's Republic of New York.
in New Yorkistan. Oh hell, New Yorkistan.
Yeah.
So Unconventional Podcast. So Icon is going to be having a new podcast called the Unconventional Podcast. I mentioned it before. We are definitely going to be covering the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo. So if you don't know about this, it's really awesome. The Retro Gaming Expo is going to be at the Cradle of Aviation Center. I forgot to write the date down, but it's
They bring the Nintendo PlayStation there too.
you can bring in.
Oh, they're bringing the Nintendo PlayStation?
Yeah,
Oh, that's going to be fun to see.
pretty sure they bring that.
That's
Do
awesome.
you know what that is? So it was a prototype that someone managed to find in their attic. So basically, PlayStation.
I don't have that in my attic.
So the original PlayStation
Yeah.
was supposed to be a joint venture between Nintendo and Sony,
Get out of here.
and it
I wonder what
actually.
that conversation went like.
Wow.
So it actually
was Japanese,
has
though.
it has a Super Nintendo. It has a Super Nintendo slot and the CD drive.
That's sick. Oh my God!
And there's only one known to exist functional in the world right now.
And somebody found it in their attic.
Someone found it in a non-functional state, and they gave it to someone to repair, and he basically reverse engineered the thing.
That is amazing. So they have
Horrible Frankenstein's monster of a machine.
I've actually heard they've reverse engineered several of the machines to repair them and actually bring them back to life. So they have standalone arcades, pinball machines.
Let me see if I can find a
and
picture of it for
they're
you.
purists too. They use CRTs. They actually lug those CRTs in there
Smash Bros.
for so that they can get the right refresh rate and all that. And they're not converting it to LCDs.
A lot of that's like really important. If you've ever tried to emulate some of these commercial video game systems, the kinds of hacks that were done in the ROM cartridge in order to get like timing loops correct and
right.
like randomly shoving data into little bits of things on the bus, in order to emulate all that is very difficult.
Okay.
Because it's
so they were like timing it with like the I don't know what the electron exciter inside the CRT and stuff like that.
Oh, sure, for the actual visuals, but even being able to the ability to load different pages off the ROM into the system and using that as like trying to get stuff in
right to get a little bit fancier of an image.
There's all kinds of like really excellent hacky sorts of things that these developers were doing.
Where you would look at the code and go, why?
They had limited resources.
Absolutely.
So
they had to get every little ounce out of these machines.
And it wasn't necessarily clean. Like it wasn't an easy read. So.
Explains a lot about genetics too.
Yeah.
How much stuff they managed to jam into our little tiny DNA strands.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's the Nintendo PlayStation.
Well, I mean, not they. I mean, evolution, but maybe they. I don't know.
Who knows?
Whatever.
You at home.
That's up to
probably
you.
Google
That's the
for this
Nintendo
and find
PlayStation.
Holy cow! That thing is insane. Check this out. Show and tell.
Oh wow, that just looks wrong.
Is that a CD caddy in the front?
Yes.
Oh,
That's
nice.
crazy.
You remember when CDs were in caddies?
What's really weird is it's the PlayStation controller port with the Super Nintendo controller.
Yeah, it's so weird.
I don't know if you could cut in an image of it or something, because obviously I can't hold my phone up to your little camera.
Turn around. No, let me get it out.
I'm sure you folks at home can Google for it,
Yeah. It's not.
or DuckDuckGo for it.
Yeah. Let's not.
It's the Nintendo
Google.
PlayStation.
So we've been avoiding putting images and audio in here because I don't want to get any copyright claims against us.
No.
But we can watch anything we want, and react to it. I think that's fine. So they can't. We are copywriting your reaction to our movie. Just try it.
So what were the dates?
I know a couple of lawyers.
What were the dates for the retro gaming club?
The games. Well, the URL is expo.liretro.com. And we're gonna and Icon's also gonna have some kind of video about it. I don't know when or where, but we'll work that out.
Is it this month? Is it next month?
It's this month. It's coming up in early August. I don't remember the date. Okay. So yeah, I stupidly didn't write it. Stupid. I didn't write it down. So sorry, folks. I missed the number. But it's pretty soon. I think it's 2 weekends from now. Cool. So.
Well, Cradle of Aviation is an awesome place to go anyway. This makes it better.
Right. They have all kinds of. They have planes hanging from the ceiling. I mean, how cool is that? Not just any planes either. Okay. So we have a couple of listener questions. So I'm just gonna shout them out and let you guys go to town with them. So the first one is, how can Apple get away with no headphone jacks on iPhones? So this is just a normal non-technocrat saying, how do they get away with
customers?
I mean,
Because Apple customers are very loyal.
Yeah.
That's the end of the story. That's the whole thing. They can do whatever they want and they won't leave.
So your answer is, no.
Well, they just have a high loyalty.
Yeah.
That's basically what it comes down to.
Silly Apple.
You could argue the reasons
Let
for the
them use
loyalty,
Apple.
but-
No.
The simplistic answer is, because their customers will buy it.
Yeah.
They'll buy the adapter, they'll do whatever. But, I mean, generally speaking, the Apple industrial design has been minimize the number of ports, minimize all of these different things. Everything they've ever done has basically been put everything on one bus. In this, for mobile, it's USB-C. It used to be FireWire, and then they went to Thunderbolt, and now it's the converged Thunderbolt USB-C.
Wasn't Apple the original pioneer of USB to begin with? They pushed for USB real early, back when it was like, what is that?
Jesus, like
The
you made me
original-
invoke Jesus.
The Bondi Blue
Mid '90s at least.
The
They
Bondi Blue
were pushing USB. We're like, what? Where's my serial port?
Right.
Like,
Right.
they were
I mean,
like-
well, so they're trying to change the standard. That's all.
Right.
You know, whether it goes or not is up to the user.
I mean, in this particular case, I think the standard headphone jack is a superior audio device.
Well, but it could encourage. In all fairness, it could encourage technology to expand,
Yeah.
so that the
Well, so what most people,
Wireless
a lot of people who
headphone jacks.
don't muck around with this stuff don't realize is there's a ton of noise in typical computers. I'm sure cell phones are no exception.
Yeah.
So by having no analog circuits in it, you don't have to worry about having as much interference from noise. But then again, I mean, they have to have an input for your microphone and an output for your speaker, so they're not completely analog free.
But you're also missing the like desire for Apple to go wireless human interface.
Right.
Keyboards, mice,
Right.
and now the actual headphones.
Right,
Like,
right.
They
So-
want to keep the actual device away from the user. There's a point
Freedom from it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a point at which your iPhone just disappears in your pocket and you never take it out because
Right.
between your watch and
Exactly.
your wireless headphones, you don't need to. Look at it.
here's a question for you. Actually, this is not on the sheet, but screw it. Is this for you, but also for you guys too? Is this part of your brain now?
totally 100%. I rely on it to like remember things.
Remember, she's a lawyer, so
Yeah.
she says, yeah. So does that mean that police are performing a brainectomy when you get
Oh,
arrested
I
and they
see.
put your thing in the
Okay.
drawer and you
Yeah.
can't read your contacts and call your friends?
Unfortunately, I don't think so.
So it's only a part of your brain most of the
Yeah.
time.
I mean,
I mean, you don't have to be able to make the same
Functional-
argument.
No, I mean, I realize
For
you're not.
functional purposes.
Nothing you're saying here is legal advice.
Right,
You can give a
right.
disclaimer if you want.
Yeah.
The
No.
reason,
Nothing I'm
the
saying
reason
here
why your argument
is
doesn't really work, you'd have to make the same argument for someone writing in a notebook.
Right. It's just a.
But my notebook doesn't know things I haven't written in it already. This does. You know
Well,
what I
it doesn't.
mean?
The services on the other end
I'm a
do.
YouTube away from learning anything.
Yeah, but it doesn't. The services on the other end do.
Right. But it's just like a pair of eyeballs that are
But
glued to
on,
my pair
from
of
a
eyeballs.
marketing
That's a
standpoint,
really weird
though, I will
analogy.
say, like, it's kind of foolish of them because
we did this last week where
they're
pirates
not holding
are.
the phone,
Yep.
right? So, I don't know.
What good is it? They spent all this time in the Retina display and it's just going to sit in your pocket.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make a hell of a lot of sense from a marketing perspective, in my opinion.
Right.
But their marketing has just been like, I own one of these.
Right.
So-
But now you can't even see that I own one of these.
Yeah. Well, now it's the watch.
People are strange. People are strange.
People
So,
are weird.
yeah.
The notion
People
of
want minions, so there's some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Sorry, the notion.
Yeah, the notion of the cell phone basically being an adjunct to the human brain. I mean, we have a generation now that has grown up with these things, that they're the first generation of cyborgs. It's
Right.
not implanted.
So I'm right.
But-
we are
I
cyborgs.
think so.
I think so.
I would argue. There's a good argument to say
Yeah.
that it's now become part of you.
Holy Christ! How did this
It's-
happen? What happened?
It's a reasonable reliance.
I mean, the difference.
They removed the audio jack from my brain and nobody stopped them. Yeah.
The difference between that device and an old notebook and, like, you write down your telephone numbers and a whole nine yards, like so-and-so's birthday and all the rest of it, is that, that's information that you kind of know, but don't. It's just
Just
kept
in
in this little,
case.
it's kept in this
Refresh
little
my memory.
archive.
You have the metadata, but not the data.
Whereas that device is able to access data that you don't even know you don't know.
Right.
Like you said, I can go find a YouTube and learn anything I want.
Right.
You didn't put it in the device. That
Right.
device allows you to access the rest of knowledge, and that's a difference. That's interesting in a fairly new way in the world.
Right.
It's
Agreed.
The only analog I can conceive of is having a library available to you, where you can walk in and then access the
Or like
whole
an
of human
assistant,
knowledge.
another
Yeah, or
human
another
or
human being,
something.
a librarian, or the secretary or something like that. Now everybody's got that,
Right.
and it is
Both
cha-
crippling and
Absolutely,
also
it is changing the
enabling-
way society works.
Yes.
Yes.
Pros and
Now I
cons.
think about it, my next cell phone should definitely be named Minion.
Minion.
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing
Minion,
stopping
do my
you.
bidding. Blah, blah, blah.
Yes. Nothing stopping you from doing it now.
Yes, I know. I can read that. Well, then everyone will know what my cell phone's called.
True.
So they'll be like, "Oh, look, who's around? Minions in the train station. Let's get them."
Yes.
All right. So that was pretty definitive. So the other one is can 5G hurt you? So I have some complex
Like
answers on
trip
this.
you in an alley kind of thing?
Yeah, whatever.
Like-
Just throw it
I
out
felt like
there.
we talked about this last time I was on.
Yes, you and I did talk about this, and this is the last time I talked about it, and somebody asked me, so maybe they missed our episode.
So I actually don't know. What frequency does it run on?
So it actually runs on two groups of frequencies. It runs on some megahertz level frequencies. It's different in different country blocks. So Europe, Japan, America, it's all different. But there's one group of frequencies in the megahertz range, and there's another one in the gigahertz range. The thing that's interesting is the gigahertz is around 30,000 gigahertz. That seems to be pretty consistent. So none of you guys want to take this, huh? Okay, I'll run with it. So it's about 30,000 gigahertz. So 2.45 gigahertz is what a microwave runs at.
Yep.
So there was a lot of concern that this is the thing that's closest to a microwave, because if you look at a chart on the effect that it has, the heating effect it has on water, it is in the actionable range. It is not in the non-actionable range like the megahertz stuff.
Okay.
It's in the actionable range of possible water manipulation. By the way, so is Wi-Fi, so don't ever
I was
hold a
about-
Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
point.
Wi-Fi's the same thing.
Wi-Fi's been around for a
2.4.
while now.
But yeah, but the difference
in
is
a
nobody's doing this with their
significant
wireless access points, I hope.
You have a cell phone. There's
You have a
Wi-Fi
cell
on it,
phone,
don't
yeah. I think
Right,
doesn't
but
mean
it's lower. It's
possible.
forced down to lower power also. So this is the key: is that because it's lower down on the curve, and because it's not all the way at the peak of the curve, right? Because in this case, in the 30,000, it's up past the 2 point, that perfect frequency to resonate with water and heat it up. But it is water sensitive enough that it should react to the water content in things like you could possibly detect heat changes through a normal amount of 5G. So the thing that I think is interesting about that, I don't think it's going to give you cancer or boil your brain. But it might be possible to do like an echolocation kind of like thing, like in the second Batman movie, the second Nolan Batman movie,
Oh,
where they
okay.
were able to use the differences in the intensities of the radiation.
I mean,
going back and
realistically-
forth
You can do that
between
with
the cell
Wi-Fi now.
phones.
Realistically, it depends
Yeah.
how many watts they're pumping into this.
I don't know. Can you do that with
Yeah,
Wi-Fi?
you can do it with Wi-Fi now.
For the same reason, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
You
water
create,
effective.
well, it's
Any water effective frequency. I
any
guess.
object really is going to create a shadow in the Wi-Fi, and if you have enough resolution, you can detect whether somebody's in a room.
Right. So if you have enough points,
think it was an
everyone's got a
MIT.
cell phone in their pocket.
Some college did it. It might have been MIT or something. You can find the paper and the little
Right.
goofy videos and stuff.
Right. So one thing that's interesting, and actually, this is crazy. So people are JRE 12. I don't know which one it was. Anyway, there was this one where this guy's talking about aliens. So he was talking about a tech that supposedly Area 51 had, and everyone said that's BS. And it turns out actually later it's a real tech, and they do have it. So apparently one of the biometrics you can use is your bone density.
Oh, wow.
So theoretically, and it's as unique as a fingerprint, like your bone shape and density.
guess.
Really?
Yep.
Actually, yeah, you
So-
could realistically measure that with
So
like radio
you
waves.
Until you
could
get old,
theoretically
anyway.
use
Changes
the
and-
output of a bunch of 5G
I guess
phones
so does your fingerprint.
to see who's around, and use bone density to do so.
There's enough
Is this what
variance?
it's meant to do? No, not at all. This has got to be a lot of clandestine code
Right.
running underneath things, and
Like
people
who's around
people
me?
sneaking around and doing binary only stuff and running stuff in the background, but it is possible technically.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think it's going to give you cancer. What do you guys think? Have you seen anything that concern you in 5G?
I mean, really, it depends how much watts it's outputting. It's not really the frequency as much.
So it's 1 watt. The limit is a hard 1 watt on cell phones. They're not able to go. And this is actually something interesting that's happening with 5G. The phones are bigger, because the antennas are bigger and the batteries are bigger, so they can get only 1 watt of power, and yet still get the kind of antenna response that they need to get.
So the
only thing you can do is make the antenna bigger if you can't change the wattage, right? So
5G is like really going to be helpful to somebody who's like playing on their phone.
it is
or
absolutely useless for anything we're doing right now, but the theory is that it would be used for
Virtual
something
reality
like augmented
or-
reality.
Yeah, the notion is that it's kind of the end game for wireless networking, because
It's the end game for all networking.
you shouldn't need any more than that will be able to push. Medically, I don't think it's a problem. If you think it's a problem, I suggest moving to a national radio quiet zone.
Well, the
West
thing I had said
Virginia.
to Rocco, because I had done less research back then when it came up, I don't know how it came, if I brought it up or you brought it up or it just
I
came
think it was
up.
on the list.
Was it on the list? Well, I blame myself. That must have been my doppelganger. Anyway, so must have been the aliens. So yeah, one of the things I suggested, if you're really that worried about it, watches. You know, you can get watches now that will do cell phone stuff. So and they take a SIM card, they do all the cell phone activities. So if you're really concerned about 5G giving you cancer, at least you can have the 5G away from your vital organs.
Right.
Have it on your wrist. You get arm cancer. I'd rather have arm cancer than brain cancer. So you know, if you're dragged into the 5G world, a la dragged into Facebook, and you don't have a choice,
You could limit your exposure too, I guess.
and then all
You
that's
can make
left is
phone
5G
calls.
phones. Get a 5G
Yeah.
watch, and then you're at least a little safer.
You could limit your exposure too. You can use Wi-Fi and make phone calls that way.
But Wi-Fi is the same frequency.
Yeah, Wi-Fi is also water
If you're
effective.
particular to 5G.
So it's like a curve. So there's a bunch of frequency ranges that are close enough to water effective that you could theoretically heat water if you pumped enough energy into
Yeah.
it. And unfortunately, Wi-Fi and 5G are both in that
I
space.
think we're damned.
If you
I really
feel
don't-
warm, turn it off.
feel like
So
your
there
brain
was-
is
Oh,
glowing.
There
I
was
love
an actual.
Are people going to text in bed for an extra sensation? That's so much warmer this way.
I thought we weren't allowed to go there. You
We
told me
can totally go
not
there.
to go there.
You just you can't get flat out naked. That's
Yeah,
all. you
all
know.
right.
I mean, I gotta keep telling.
I mean,
So-
you had two.
I have it in my
rules.
notes
One
here
of
somewhere.
them.
Well, the second hour is going to be a lot less interesting. Fine.
Yeah.
So this article I read was probably like a good 10, 15 years ago. So it's got nothing to do with like 3G. Probably none of these mobile network stuff. Probably just standard cell phone conversation, like the voice cell phone reception. What's the word for that? 1G? I don't know. Voice.
Right,
Voice.
G.
G.
Hey, you
Oh.
guys!
So
Sorry. keep
So
going.
basically, they're basically studying the effects of a cell phone on the brain to see if it actually could cause brain tumors and that type of stuff.
Right.
So what they found was, like I said, this is the older technologies, not pertaining to this. But what they found was, it wasn't energetic enough to cause genetic mutation, but it was enough to create heating in your brain where you have it held up to your head, and that heat could theoretically cause a mutation if it's sustained for a long enough time.
Right.
It could theoretically create a hot spot.
It also could create a delicious sizzling smell.
But what they found was,
Oh, what smells so good?
so what they found was a human
Too.
adult, your skull is thick enough that it blocks a majority of it. It was more of a concern for children under 7.
Right. Okay.
So just like the physical heat.
Yes, the
physical
physical
heat.
heat
Okay.
creating a hot spot
Does a
could
child-
cause issues.
Does
I
a
mean-
child of 7 have the wrist strength to hold one of the Motorola bricks and like keep it next to their head?
Well, this was
long
like
enough?
it wasn't that old. I think this was early 2000s.
Think
It wasn't.
So if you hate your children, it's legal.
StarTAC.
Yeah, Star Trek generation. That's about right.
Well, if you remember the StarTAC, the
you pass me a
antenna went
Chardonnay?
out.
That's true.
Our engineer is a phone expert.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, it says. Well, he right now he's working the audience to try to get him to ask us questions.
Oh, I
so
see.
ask us questions. So we'd like to hear your questions. So keep them coming, and I'll try to do a little segment in the beginning. Sorry it took me so long to get to our tougher questions, but I think we made it tough anyway. So why not?
Oh, why not? Oh wait,
All right.
we're done with these questions.
We're up to
Oh.
panel questions. These are the
Okay.
tough ones.
All right. Okay.
Oh, these are the good ones. First of all, do you guys have anything you want to talk about? You know, I mean, I want to give you a chance to, like, if there's something you wanted to bring up with the group. If you had a bunch of technocrats in one place, what would you do with them? You know, no? Okay.
Oh, well, I like that moral question that you had.
You're not going to get good answers to that?
Good answers.
I like the
It's okay,
self-regulating.
just direct the answers directly at me instead of the group. There we go. Nerds.
I like the self-regulation question you posed earlier. I'm
Yeah.
curious to, if you want to comment on that. Like, what are your thoughts? I'm curious about that.
Self-regulation is it one of the ones on here, or no?
You were mentioning something earlier about like what level of responsibility we should all have towards the community with respect to technological issues and questions.
Right.
Like what?
Well, here's a broader question. So yeah, okay, I see what you're saying with that, and yeah, we can continue that. So the broader question is it inherently behavioral to humans to treat each other well, or is this something we need to enforce? And further, if it isn't something that we even can enforce?
Right. My personal belief is that we shouldn't force anyone to do anything, but
Right.
maybe a little peer pressure. You know,
social pressure.
Social pressure.
Okay.
Nudging, eh?
Nudging. Come on. Shouldn't you go to that ACLU meeting? Shouldn't you write a brief? Yeah.
Mom, like that.
Yeah, I mean, we are the voice of technology, and it's either going to be us or it's going to be corporations.
Or it's going to be the robots.
Right, or the robots.
Maybe they'll choose for us.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, I don't mean to make it silly,
No, but
it is kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, we want a voice. So if you want a voice, if you want to steer the ship, then I think, it would be nice to take on that leadership role,
Yeah.
each of us.
I agree, and that's actually one of the things, so not to be boring, but that's actually one of the things I was hoping to do with the show, was to try to get people involved and to realize your life is controlled by computers, which is controlled by algorithms, which are actually decisions that someone else made for you,
Right.
and you're completely unaware of it, or you're aware of it and you're fine with it. Get mad, people!
Yeah,
So
be
I
active.
actually know
Be
people
active.
that get angry if you try to teach them about technology. They want to know nothing about technology. They just want it to work, and if you even try to educate them, they get angry.
They also want to be able to complain about it.
Right.
Well, that's
Feels
true,
so
yes. So it's kind of a virtue signaling to be a non-technocrat. It's like, look at me, look at my wonderful plumage. I know nothing about computers. Binary makes me sad.
I think it's
How
just,
strange! What a bunch of weirdos!
I've met people like this.
Yeah, I know,
It's like
me
a
too. I know
badge
exactly
of
what he's talking.
honor.
Rocco is spot on. I totally know what you're talking
Yes.
about. I have met those people. I don't know what to do. What do we do about them?
Like,
I
you don't even have to be talking about
it's
anything
like-
controversial.
Let them get eaten by the robot dogs?
I want to say it's a generational thing, but it's not. I've seen young people do it too, and I'm like, all right.
I
I don't know. I'm just not a technology person.
Do you
I'm like,
feel it's
mean,
your
it's-
responsibility to do something with them?
I'm not a robot dog, so no, I don't feel like I need to pee on their leg or something. But
it just perplexes me.
I just don't I'm worried about. So this is one of the things. Look, I love how you're just getting right to the core of it. So this is one of the things that comes up with democracy. You can't be a full-time technocrat. You can be a technocrat most of the time, but you can't be a full-time technocrat. You got to step back and be a humanist at some point, or you don't believe in democracy.
Right.
You can't just make decisions for other people all day and give them no choices and
course not.
pretend that democracy works.
No, of course not.
They're incompatible.
But at a minimum, I would say that if you're in a position to have a broader, more in-depth view and understanding of a subject matter, that I would say that maybe it would be nice if you felt compelled to participate in the decision-making processes.
I think democracy can work. I think it's actually a huge. No, I'm not advocating against democracy. I love democracy. I think democracy is the only thing between us and obliteration at this point. I think MAD is still in effect. Everyone forgot, but MAD's still there. All those nukes are still sitting there waiting to go off. So MAD's still in effect, and I think democracy is the only thing between us and it. So I think the stakes are way higher than other people. Just because we're not having air raid drills every week reminding you doesn't mean it's not real. Yeah, I mean the stake is democracy, and the stakes of democracy is obliteration at this point. So I
we need
I
to
have to
protect
think
it.
I don't even have a choice. I have to think democracy is not only plausible but obtainable.
You got to keep.
Within reach.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'll go mad.
Yeah, you have to. It's like a checks and balances. You have to keep fighting and striving towards perfection. You're never going to reach it.
Right.
But you just got to keep moving things around until it balances as best you can.
That's great. I mean, what do you guys think? You guys are really quiet. Should we be strong, or should we just give in to the robot dogs? And let them pee in our legs.
I mean, I just think at a certain point people don't want to know, and you can't help them.
Right.
So
Right. Okay.
you only, if they're willing, help. If they're not, don't, and that's all you can do.
I mean, really, so here's the thing I haven't mentioned before about technocracy, and if I'm boring you guys, stop me. Don't worry, we'll get into more details later. But, the thing is, oligarchy and even theocracy are just special cases of technocracy. I mean, even to a degree, a republic is a special case of a technocracy. The problem of the technocracy is the problem. When you have a group of people who know more than other people, and it's like, what is the process of becoming? Now, the thing that gives me hope in all this is open source. Because it's a zero barrier to entry, but at the same time, I thought there would be a bigger flood of people who are interested and knowledgeable
It's
and had the knack.
highly technical. It's ever
very-
evolving.
yes, and it's getting more technical all the time.
It's uninviting. It's uninviting.
It's uninviting, and it's getting more uninviting
Yes.
as time goes on.
Yes.
Because it gets more complicated, because
Right.
it legitimately, for legitimate uses, has more choices.
I like now that they're having like camps and things of that nature to encourage other people to start coding and stuff.
You will attend the camp!
Maybe not those kinds of camps,
I
but
gotta
then
get Isaac to react.
it's not.
Graceful now.
I know. Well, they have all kinds of
I did
STEM
not see it
programs.
before, but
Now I'm
you know,
beginning to see it.
I wonder.
Yeah.
Yep. No, not good.
Well, I see you have your papers. Very good.
Yes.
There's, I mean, you threw out oligarchy and theocracy, and trying to throw technocracy in there too, and I'm not sure that's really an appropriate progression, because in a theocracy, your
Yes.
ability to rise within that concept is your knowledge of doctrine, and your
Right.
ability to apply doctrine, and that doctrine has some things to do with the reality around you, but not very much, in all honesty.
Right.
And then within
It may or may not. It's completely dislocated as to whether,
It's its own-
to whatever degree that God
it's
happens
its
to
own
be real or
thing,
not. Yeah.
and your ability to articulate and apply that doctrine is really how you excel in that sort of program.
See,
In an oligarchy,
yeah.
you have some mechanism, it's hereditary or a mantle passing mechanism by which
right.
to become part of the oligarchy.
Sometimes there's other kinds of oligarchies too.
Well,
There's business oligarchies where you're part of the right guild, or you're part of the right,
Right.
you
And-
have the right family wealth, or you're part of the right circle. And,
but again, it has very little to do with your ability to exist within reality as it is. Perhaps in a guild, you do have to produce a masterwork and have other masters evaluate you and say, "Oh, yes, you are actually one of us." And you're producing an artifact there. That I think is fairly rare. But a plutocracy, similarly. You've managed to amass wealth, and in a capitalist system that usually reflects something, but in non-capitalist systems, having a buttload of money doesn't really say anything other than you're connected either historically or through politics.
Right.
You come now to technocracy, which I'm still trying to figure out what it is.
Right. Everyone's trying to figure out what
But
it is.
I would.
But we're in it, for sure.
There's this danger here that just because you happen to be connected to the machines, that means you're a leader in the technocracy. Or is
That's
it
not
much
just a danger, that's reality now.
yeah, or is it more of a meritocracy, where if you can get the machines to do a thing, you're a leader? And that I'm not sure is yet settled.
See, I was just thinking you weren't listening.
He was in deep thought.
No. Just
Yeah.
Continue.
I ponder.
I joke in case people are going,
yeah.
because you need to listen to this.
Yeah, no, it's-
Listen to Isaac.
I'm not sure we're at a meritocracy in terms of technocracy right now.
Right.
Your Mark Zuckerbergs are there, and they're sort of taking this role that I've seen bandied about even at this table of like, you have to be a good shepherd to these people who don't understand it. Like, I don't know about that. Even in the beginning.
Why?
Well, even in the beginning of the show, we were talking about the difference between Twitter and Gab. Twitter is trying to manipulate the narrative that is on Twitter and who is on Twitter by shadow bans and direct bans and other forms of
Screw
censorship.
with hashtags.
Yeah, and they're doing the kind of cultivation and saying, oh, well, they don't really understand what they're doing. I know better, and I'm going to impose my idea of what should be on Twitter on these people. And Gab is just kind of like, yeah, just sign up and say what you want, and as long as it's not, threatening or illegal or anything like that, then go ahead, have a great time. Now, which one do you think represents technocracy more? Which one represents democracy more?
Yeah.
I'm
So
more
let me
interested in Gab.
defend myself. I actually
Yeah.
thought about this real hard, and I was joking about. I was hoping you were listening. And I was joking about that you weren't listening, and so oligarchy specifically, I'm referring to oligarchies, not bloodlines. Right? Bloodlines are completely meritless. They're just, unless you really think that genetics is the only sorting mechanism, which is got all kinds of horrible implications otherwise. But there's other kinds of oligarchies.
Sure.
And also, even if you have a genetic bloodline, truly there is no, even in a monarchy, there is no king without his keys, without his key advisors. And the key advisors are actually what transfer from king to king to king, and they're the ones who keep them in power. So they're the technocrats, not the king. The king is just, the manager of the
Like
technocrats.
Varys, for example.
Yes, Varys or Littlefinger. Those would be technocrats. Sorry, 1 month spoiler warnings. But yes, Game of Thrones. Look it up. So yeah,
I've heard of that.
Yeah,
I think with this crowd, I think you're.
yeah. I think I'm probably. You never know.
You're good.
People are busy. People are busy. Sometimes they don't.
If you haven't watched Game of Thrones yet, really shame on you.
Yeah, come on.
But
By the way, I
skip the whole last
predicted
season.
Bran. By the way, you see that on Facebook?
Did you?
Yeah, I totally predicted Bran. Right.
Wait,
that's a
now
whole
you're
different
spoiling.
conversation.
Now you're
But
crossing some lines.
bring up Varys.
No, 1 month for spoiler rules. We don't care.
Bring
Get
up
out of here.
Varys is also very instructive here because Varys, as a character, is constantly saying, "I serve the realm,
Right.
not the crown.
Right.
I serve."
But he's
the
still a
realm."
technocrat. He understands stuff about how things work. I mean, like Dinkler was saying, or whatever. Tywin, no, not Tywin.
Peter Dinklage?
Yeah, Dinklage. Yeah,
That's his
the
real name.
the midget. Yeah.
No, I don't think we're not supposed to say that anymore.
Oh, we're not supposed to say that?
Person.
Little-
But I think they called him the.
Really?
Imp?
Oh, come
Imp?
on. Please stop changing language. We've already got enough
sorry.
problems with language vapor lock. What?
They go by little person.
Little person.
Little person.
Dinkler, the master actor. Yeah, so he was talking about how he knows the sewer system better than anyone else in Westeros, right? That's a technocrat. He really understands that a technical detail in a way that no one else without a top view and having to fix a problem in it before would understand it. So that's my argument for that. As far as the technocracy being a theocracy, that's a little harder to sell, and I could see how you would have an objection to that, because of course you could argue that theocracy isn't doing anything, because religion isn't doing anything, or faith isn't doing anything, or at least it's not doing enough. It's not connected enough to reality to matter. But being an expert in scripture is a technical field.
Sure.
It is extremely technical, and it takes a lot of work to, and that's how you rise in a theocracy, is becoming a master of scripture, of whatever the rules are. Usually the way it works is there's a ton of rules, and there's so many that only the very smartest people know them all.
It's actually being the most persuasive rule
That's it,
interpreter.
right. Well, it's both, right? It's knowing all of them, but also being the most persuasive interpreter.
You could have,
as well.
you have those really super geeky people
But
that.
even if you have the super,
No one
even if
listens
you
to.
have the crazy televangelist guy in the front, he may have he may have readers behind him looking stuff up.
Right.
Or now I guess it'd just be done with technology like this. So I guess we superseded that, because now you can just grab a Bible,
Right.
But theocracy is.
Well, you needed to do a scroll before, right? Now you can't grab. I mean, think about when nobody could read except the people who knew how to read and copy the Bible.
Right.
I mean, there was literally a literacy bottleneck where the religion was the entirety of Western civilization. So-
Theocracy is highly stable. It is an excellent way to run an entire continent for 1,000 years, and it was called the Dark Ages.
Yeah, and it makes no progress.
And it
And
is
it competed with Vikings and almost lost.
it is
which
completely.
were also stagnant.
It is highly stable because when you keep people ignorant and dependent upon you for understanding their world, then you can stay in charge.
And this is to me. That's why I think it's important to think of theocracy as one possible technocracy, because that's the dark outcome. That's the completely dark outcome, where all of the technical knowledge has nothing to do with merit at all. There's zero elements of meritocracy, and it just has to do with hours and effort and proximity and intelligence and charisma.
But the thing that brought down the Dark Ages was a Renaissance, where demonstrable alternatives were put in front of people.
Through the right to fork. That's what I would say happened with Martin Luther. That's exactly what happened.
Well,
with
Martin Luther came later. This
Yeah,
is
he
more
was
like
after the end of the
This is
Dark
more like Galileo versus the Pope sort of thing.
Well, yeah, right.
It's like
But even-
I can explain gravity without the ability of things to move in the world without the
Galileo.
But I would argue even Galileo. I mean,
had
right, yeah,
major issues with his
You
church.
didn't have the Gutenberg press behind him.
Yeah.
But even with Galileo, I mean, people were allowed to disagree with the church. in a way that they weren't allowed to before. There were people who agreed with Galileo. He wasn't alone.
And they lived.
He was up against bad odds, but he
Yeah.
wasn't alone.
Well, it was the Copernican heresy, if you recall.
Yes, yes.
And what broke the Dark Ages was a demonstrable alternative truth.
Right.
Provable alternative truth, where the established doctrine is sitting there and is like, well, here's the way the world works, and it's like, well, what about this? And when they can't explain that, suddenly we have the Renaissance and all of modern everything coming back. It also incidentally required the Greeks and the rediscovery of all those ancient texts.
Right.
Which is a very entertaining little wrinkle.
So it's a truth bomb, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I see the truth bomb as having actually done, which created the situation where you could know the thing that changed that allowed the right to fork to be expressed, because the right to fork wasn't the thing that actually did it. It was the truth bomb. But the thing that the truth bomb actually did was it created a situation where I don't remember what I was going to say anymore.
The truth bomb you were talking about.
Yeah. No, it created a situation where it split meritocracy from technocracy. And people said, oh, that there is no meritocracy. It's just assumed that they're incorrect. Because how could this be true and opposite what you're saying? And if you're saying your meritocracy is perfect, and yet there's this huge glaring truth, obviously the Earth's round.
Yeah.
That's what we're really talking about, people. So if you're a flat earther, sorry, you're on the wrong channel.
But can I just interrupt for a quick second, because I feel like if I don't get it out, I'm going to explode.
Yeah, go for it.
You
Please
said
don't
something about
explode.
the Greeks, and I just want to say I'm Greek. That's it.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm Greek.
Thank you for freeing civilization.
I just
Good job.
good.
like holding it
Good
in.
job.
I'm trying to listen.
Good job on that Western civilization thing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was my people.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
I give you a high five, but you're too far away. All right, yes.
We're tall. We're tall.
Also the food.
I'm not giving Martin Luther all the credit. It wasn't just him. It was also
My
the Greeks
So
and Copernicus.
Yes.
the more interesting modern twist is probably within the last decade or two, we have this internet thing.
Oh, that.
That's kind of come around, where there was a consistent political doctrine that was out there, a narrative of how things are, which is pushed by politicians and media and various leaders, and then all of a sudden people got this pile of crazy ideas that gets piped straight into their living rooms.
Right.
And it's changing things.
Oh, it's like a cool drink of water, man. It's awesome.
It can
Yeah.
be.
I
Or
love
it
you,
can-
Internet. Even if you don't love me back, I still love you.
Or if you're one of those people who are highly invested in the prior narrative or doctrine of how the world is supposed to work, highly threatening and dangerous and scary.
The last 30 years have looked like this. Oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh,
Yeah.
fuck.
Well, I mean, they always have cognitive dissonance to help them.
Yeah, well, and that works pretty well.
Yeah. It's like a warm blanket.
Yeah, you know?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So, to me, actually, this is one of the things I was thinking about making a cartoon about. That lack of that divergence between, and this is something that science is our truth weapon now. And when science and meritocracy don't match up, which happens more than people think, it's deeply scary to me, because that's the threat to Western civilization, the threat that meritocracy will become just a PR campaign and have absolutely no merit whatsoever. And I love open source as the model for, this is going back to the last thing, open source is the model for, just jump right to the end. This is awesome. Open source is the model for Western civilization, and that open source is, because of the right to fork and because of the ability to collaborate with an almost infinite number of people, depending on their ability to contribute, that it really is the best example of a scientific meritocracy.
What was
we
that
have.
caveat?
People will be able to contribute.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's kind of important.
yeah. Right. Well, that's what science is. You're supposed to be able to, even if your contribution is criticism. That's the key.
Well, that's a big part of
that's
the
most
scientific method.
Yeah, and I mean, and the thing is, and people think that science can't fail just because you slap the label science on it. But without that peer review, and peer review doesn't just mean
peer
people,
being the operative word, though.
yeah, well, it doesn't mean you have a pile of PhDs. It just means you can reproduce the experiment,
Right.
or reproduce the conditions for the prediction
And
in the case where you can't have a control.
And properly interpret those
Fair enough.
results.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But there's a lot of interpretation, and this is. I see a potential there for a PR disaster where meritocracy is announced instead of earned. Yes, please.
I'm good.
Speedball.
No one wants me to have more coffee. No one wants that.
Now I'll bring up more topics and forget more points more quickly.
Excellent.
You see what I'm saying though about the
That skull
divergence
has a
between.
helmet. That is a cool mug.
Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers.
He gave me a dinosaur mug. It is dinosaurs. It's very cool.
Oh, my
I
cup's
have a
empty.
Fallout
Your
Shelter
cup's
mug.
empty.
That is also a very cool
Yeah.
mug.
I actually
That's
chose
legit from the Missile Museum.
Really?
So, yes, actually, there is one working ICBM museum in Arizona, and we went down to it as a family. And I told one of my guests that, and he immediately reacted by putting it the greatest distance he could from his body, assuming that it was radioactive, because we didn't know how
So
radioactivity
you
worked.
and you and your family went to a missile museum?
Yes, we did. We went
Okay,
to in Arizona, and
That's
it
what
was
the new
amazing.
halls do? That's
It
what
was-
the new halls do?
That's
Do
what
they
we
ha-
do. Well, then we got chased by a sandstorm on the way out. That was
Oh,
exciting
wow.
too.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
It was a dog named Sandstorm. So when you were at the Missile Museum and you decided to have a midday meal, did you eat
We went to California.
lunch?
Oh, yes.
Good night, folks.
Was that a pun?
That was so good.
It's a Missile Museum.
I think puns are funny. What's up, people? All right, anyway.
Do I have to sit next to him?
No, now you're trapped. Your seat is assigned.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, stop.
I'll be
Okay, so what's your favorite algorithm, people?
Y equals mx plus b.
Okay,
It is my favorite,
sure. Why?
because it's a line.
Okay,
It's predictable.
okay,
Okay, that's it.
All
Really, I
right.
really don't have much,
okay.
I just like it.
Great.
It stuck with me.
All right. Very cool.
I'm gonna
Spot on.
I'm going to take a more literal answer.
Sure.
I like rep.
Okay. Great. Do you like the regex aspects
Yeah,
of it?
actually I do. I use regex quite a lot.
Okay. So,
I like being able to just like quickly rip through a large block of data and just get something out of it.
great. Believe it or not, this is the icebreaker. We are on the icebreaker, people.
We're getting really codey.
We completely got away from that. Don't worry, it's going to go away from it again.
No, I can do coding.
I'm not good with Shor's algorithm.
I don't know what that is.
Those kind of algorithms.
It is a quantum algorithm for factoring that you need a quantum computer to do. So it's one of those
Guys,
things.
explain this to school.
That's-
We'll go for it.
It's one of those things that's both of the present and the future.
Yeah.
That it's you can run through it, but in order to actually efficiently apply it, you need a machine that doesn't necessarily exist yet, and it's probably going to be the thing that destroys cryptography.
Nice.
In the
No more secrets stored away.
at some point, probably within our lifetimes.
Right.
So it's just kind of hanging there, like
Right.
looking at you funny from the darkness.
Have you heard the Star Wars theory on encryption?
What is that?
The Star Wars universe is the way it is because there's no encryption. Encryption doesn't exist. That's why you have to put everything in droids and move it places.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, if they had paper tape,
Right now we can beam
God.
anything to anywhere.
Oh, you would still have to move it places.
yeah, it's true. Some
Although we do know R2 has a little lighter thing, so yes, paper tape would be a good option.
everything in science fiction is still all about moving molecules from one place to another.
Nice. Yeah, that's true.
You know what that kind of
Now
reminds me?
that's a good closer. Unfortunately, we're an hour and a half too early. So
Sorry. We've all been at this.
we just jump right to the end, people. Everything's going to seem anticlimactic now.
So you know what that kind of reminds me of when
you
you said
sure?
that Star Wars is the way it is because they had no encryption?
Holy cow! Oh, we started late.
That was it.
Okay.
Yeah, we started late.
So when you said Star Wars is the way it is because it had no encryption, that actually reminded me of something.
Yes.
Have you ever seen the sci-fi show Andromeda in like the early 2000s?
Underrated, awesome show.
Yeah, I liked it. So in that universe, faster than light travel was possible, but not faster than light communication.
Oh, so showing
to
up was
courier.
actually faster.
Yes.
So
they would actually have
a guy on a
couriers
horse is the
delivering
fastest
messages.
way to
Wow.
send messages. Nice. That's awesome. I did not actually put that together. Good. I didn't watch all of Andromeda. I only watched
Alright.
a few episodes here and there. So,
Also a Gene Roddenberry product, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was after his death, but yeah.
I had this idea and I wrote it down.
So my favorite algorithm, I get lots of favorite because I get to ask this all the time. I think I'm going to make this a regular question. Has anybody ever asked you what your favorite algorithm
Never,
was?
ever.
Ever before?
Probably the first time, yeah.
Nice! Technocrat Live, another first. All right, so my favorite is noise canceling headphones, or specifically throwing one sound wave at another through an algorithm, reading in one and then printing out the opposite. It's a very simple algorithm.
Oh, that's fun.
And then it just creates nothing. It stops the air from moving and you don't hear anything.
It would have to go really quickly.
Yes, of course. Well, the speed of light's faster than the speed of sound, so it's just a bandwidth problem. Yep. So, and now you can do it for $50 for headphones. You can pick up for $50 on Amazon. So, yeah, it used to be expensive, right? You can only get it from Bose, and it was like $400, and it was exclusive. And Sharper Image liked to sell it because, well, it's $400. But now it's just you can get it anywhere. So.
I'll sell you a pair of little foam plugs for $399.
Yeah,
That'll cancel noise real good.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Actually, at a certain point, the noise canceling technology would become more powerful than a plug, wouldn't it?
I mean, if
Depends
you were
how big
willing,
the muff is,
how much do you trust it? When a small malfunction will create a 100 decibel noise, maybe not.
That's true.
Let's do attenuation. That's like the difference. They're supposed to, the plugs make things lower. This doesn't really make anything lower. Just kind of like covers it. If it makes sense.
Yeah, it's as if
It's making an inverse wave to try and cancel it out, right?
Yeah.
When you have plugs, it literally is attenuation. It literally just
it's literally as if it, at the speed of light, it picks up a pebble and finds exactly the right pebble and throws it into the pond to stop the waves going in the opposite direction, so the pond is suddenly still. Is the best way I could give it an analogy. I mean, I don't know how many non-computer scientists are watching this at this point, but if you made it this far, that's what's going on.
Except for a couple wavelengths away where it's actually amplifying, but that's fine.
Yeah, okay. Now, wouldn't that be interesting if that actual side effect was happening outside of my analogy, and actually happened with the headphones too, and you're walking around, and all you hear is silence, and all everyone else hears is
We call that sitting on the subway.
I think it might still be my favorite algorithm.
Yeah. Now you like it more.
I like it more.
Does it affect the way your headphones sound though because of it? Like it changes
Yes.
the sound signature.
Yes, yeah, I've noticed the sound of
That's-
music.
That's really the interesting
the
part about those
sound of
headphones,
music.
is that it's not merely neutralizing the exterior sound, but it's blending in the source sound music that you're interested in.
Yes, that's
Cool stuff.
This is towards if you have bassy music, it actually gets filtered into the noise cancellation.
Yeah.
It tries to cancel out the bass.
Whoops.
Yay!
Yeah, so I mentioned it briefly before the start of the show, but there was a Kickstarter a while ago the device turned out to be a total piece of junk that didn't work because it was
Yeah, it's on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was scientifically. It was just like scientifically flawed. Like just the laws of physics didn't quite work. But the idea was.
Isn't that a prereq for Kickstarter?
Yeah. I've got one or two good things out of there. The rest were garbage.
Right. Continue.
So basically, the Kickstarter was for a noise canceling speaker that you could just put in a room and have silence. That was
Right.
the concept, which is very fundamentally flawed because it works by canceling out waves. So the only way it would work is for it to in the room and know the direction of the waves to be able to do all the right calculations. That's why it works on earphones. It knows your ear is there, it knows you're very close to it, it knows it's going in that direction. It works because it knows where the wave is going to cancel in your eardrum. But if the speaker's in the middle of the room, it doesn't know where you are. You're going to get amplification,
Right,
you're going
right.
to get canceling, you're going to get everything.
Right, it becomes a multivariable calculus because normally the variable between your distance between the speaker and your eardrum is fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe now with the new 5G technology, they can find out exactly where your ear is.
Oh, forget you, creepy lady. Thanks for that. Oh, what could possibly go
so
wrong?
sorry.
Just tell the robot
so
dogs
sorry.
how to figure out
I'm
what we're
just
thinking.
saying.
But it's
I'm just
also
saying.
fascinating that
You're
you
not
bring up
wrong.
multipath.
You're totally right.
because that is a big issue with all of these wireless
Actually, I
services
wonder
in
if that
cities.
is physically even possible to do.
Yeah, I'm kidding. Relax. You look worried. I'm kidding. You're
Wait,
dead
I
bang
don't
on.
even. I
You're dead
wasn't
bang on.
kidding.
Well,
I
you
was
just
No, you're
said
right.
you gave me an
You're totally
interesting
right.
thought. You just gave me an interesting
She's
thought.
worried I was big.
No, I'm not worried.
You're
man.
dead bang
My
on.
ego's too big to worry about things like that.
Excellent.
Would it be-
You'll fit right in here.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for that single speaker in the middle of the room to cancel that noise to your perception if the mics were clipped to your ears?
It depends how
Would that
directional the
work?
speaker is. You know.
I mean, technology's moving quickly.
So
You
there
never
are
know.
systems that kind of do the inverse, which has a 2-point source speakers that can create a waveform that sort of interferes with itself at a single
To make
point
it
in the
directional.
room, and then as long as you're there, you can
Yeah.
hear it, and if you're not there, you're not hearing it.
So
which
you
is
need both
kinda
positional sensors on your head and 2 mics clipped to your ears.
or just wear a pair of headphones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are simple solutions to some of these things, guys.
Apple will make something.
I'm sure,
I want to look cool.
and it will be wireless.
It'll be wireless.
Yeah, I don't really worry about how technology works. I just worry about how I look. So,
Yeah,
you know.
that's important.
Yeah, it's important.
Me too.
That's why I walk around like a pirate. Arr!
This phone doesn't even work. It's just a good-looking phone.
It just glows.
Yeah.
It's just a glow. You like the way it lights up the side of your face. This is the right color palette for me. All right. So, how about a least favorite algorithm? I have a feeling you have an amazing answer.
I like the sort function.
I mean,
but-
like someone might hate Square Wave, right? I'm just sick of synth. I'm done with it. You know, that'd be an example
Yeah,
of a simple.
I feel like this isn't where I'm going to contribute to the conversation.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Least favorite algorithm.
See, that's ponder.
Yeah.
This is
Deep
just
thoughts.
this is just bringing up programs that I couldn't use because the bugs were too much.
Right.
That's
So
just what I'm thinking of.
probably right now, my least favorite is whatever algorithm the various social media giants have implemented to mess with the hashtag output so that it doesn't actually represent what people are. Because I really loved it a few years ago when the hashtags were accurate and wild, crazy things would pop up all of a sudden out of nowhere and flash in like a flash mob and flash out again. It was interesting because it gave you some insights into what people are thinking, and it's gone. And I really doubt I'm ever going to see it again in my lifetime because even Gab pulls it down. You know, I mean, in case you thought I was blowing smoke up their butt before, you know, even they pull down their hashtags because people, it's too easy to abuse. People figure out how to crowd it, and then they just attack it with bots, and then it just says garbage.
Right.
You know, whatever garbage they're trying to promote. So
they have to create an algorithm to
whatever the algorithm they're
circumvent
using,
that, and
they're
it's-
basically they haven't done it,
it's
so they're just
crude.
using the censorship bot to cut and shut down the ones that they don't like.
Right.
Yeah,
That's sad.
it is sad.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Nice. I stumped him. I stumped Isaac.
No, there's just so much, I bet. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot
feel
of
like you're
things
very
to be discussed.
There's a lot of terrible
cynical,
algorithms.
critical, cynical.
I mean, I guess like modern software development, which is just keep writing stuff and throw it against a compiler until it doesn't turn back errors, and then watch it fail, and then when it fails, hack more crap onto it, and then
So like a combination of top-down and freeware.
horrible loop of just designless madness, if you call that an algorithm.
So
I'll get
machine
back to
learning. You hate machine learning.
I don't hate machine learning.
But that's essentially machine learning, but with people instead of the machines.
No.
Yeah.
You basically just define trial and error.
But it's not trial and error. I mean, like,
It's just sloppy.
yeah.
All right, whatever. You can answer another time.
It's like
Neural networks don't like fail. They. Well, anyway, I can go on that, but I'll get back to you. Least
Okay,
favorite
cool.
algorithm.
Cool. So Isaac will get back. Tune in for that.
Yeah.
So all right. So the next question is. Dun, 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 dun. Now we're really into it. Now we're getting serious here, for you people.
Okay, here we go.
All right. So thank you to Isaac. Great insight that you shared with me, and I've been sharing with the world. Mostly pearls before swine. They don't get it, so I'm going to repeat it here.
Yeah. Remind me.
About how anonymity is temporary. specifically, you were talking about encryption.
Yes.
And how, well, if you think you're safe because you're encrypting something, but really it's only safe right now.
Right.
And 5 years from now or 10 years from now, that encryption may not be safe at all.
Yeah.
And if someone has captured your session data, they can just run whatever flaw has come out since then and go, oh, look, here's what they were saying.
Yeah.
You know. And kudos for that, because actually I realized something even broader, which is I think that something I didn't realize. Anonymity is a strategy, and it's not an effective one unless it's an offensive strategy, because defensive strategies need to be able to go for an indeterminate amount of time. Offensive strategies depend on kind of having a supply line and being able to get a job done and accomplish a goal and then cutting back.
I don't think I understand your point. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you to rephrase that a bit. That was a bit hard.
Right. So the examples I gave here, of course, the encryption one's the easiest one to understand because Isaac's good at that. But like a solved murder, right? So when you murder someone, you don't want to get caught, so you're anonymous.
Right.
You murder them anonymously. Then the police try to de-anonymize you, and it's an offensive strategy.
So that's offensive. Okay.
You know, usually they'll catch you, not always, but often.
Actually, I don't know. Can we get a fact check?
How often are murders solved? Nice use of the fact check. I think murder solved. There's also been I know it's true. Well, all right, so this may be conflation, but it's going to look like it's true. And here's why. Because I know the CSI effect is real.
In 2017, 40% of U.S. murders went unsolved.
You're right.
How does it compare to?
Unsolved.
Yeah, most are solved. So, and also I know that it got better as soon as programs like CSI started coming out, because people started imagining the police to have superpowers they don't have.
It actually went up from about 30% in 2015 to about 40% in 2017.
Compared to the 70s.
Compared to 70s?
Yeah, I bet it's like 60%.
Right, so you think like the
1870s or the
1970s, yeah. No, I'm not trying to include duels in it. You know, I'm trying to, you basically roughly use our legal structure now. Right.
So you think it like had a rippling effect on the community, the murderous community, that is? Like,
yes. Right.
The murder community.
That was the most
such a well-known
amazing sentence.
They were just having
I love
this
it.
meeting.
You know what?
Like, you know what?
So I gotta say, like, we've been friends forever, and this is one of the things I love about you is that you're so honest. You discover new truths just by plowing through the bullshit.
Thank you.
There's running headlong into it.
Yes, I think that's what like kept us together as friends.
It's just, running in a library screaming books.
Yes.
All right.
There actually is an encryption method that's theoretic. Well, it's scientifically considered uncrackable because it's I think it's called a one-time pad. Yep, there it is. So basically, it's an XOR cipher.
Right.
So do you know what an XOR cipher is?
Well, why don't you tell the audience?
So basically, you have, in binary data, you have your zeros and your ones. So you take another set of zeros and ones that's the same size as the data you're trying to encrypt.
Oh, right, of course, yeah.
And for each bit, you compare the two and you do XOR. So if they're the same, it's a 1. If they're different, it's a 0.
So statistically, the odds of guessing the answer would be the same.
It's impossible to guess the answer because there is a different decryption key to turn that piece of data into anything you want.
Right. So it would be, the leverage is, what I'm trying to say is the leverage is 0.
The thing is, the key can only be used once, because once you have the key and the solution, you can put them once you have the solution and the encrypted data, you can combine them to create the key.
Right.
Then what happens?
So it's only valid if it's used once and your key needs to be the same size as the data. So if you need to transmit 2 gigs of data, you need a 2 gig size key. And that key needs to be given to that person in a secure way. And they can only use it once.
And then what happens to data?
Well, now both parties have the data.
Okay, I see.
But interestingly is the U.S. and the Russians actually did something very similar to communicate with each other during the Cold War. when we were enemies with each other, we actually traded a large volume of random data with each other. The Russians gave us a copy of random data, we gave the Russians a copy of random data, and that was one-time use. So let's say this was several terabytes, I don't know how big it was in reality, but let's say it was several terabytes in size, and we wanted to give the Russians several megs of data. They would take the top first few megs, and that would be the decryption key for that piece of data, and then next, and it would burn through it.
Oh, neat. But only once.
Yeah, and it's perfectly unhackable.
Nice.
But it can only be used once.
Right.
As the Russians learned in the Venona documents, where they used some of their code pages more than once.
But you could also just recreate another key. Like you could just make another one every time you transfer it.
In that scenario, though, someone physically delivered them. Like someone physically went to Russia and gave them the data.
You have to maintain confidentiality on the key. So the question becomes, well, if you have to send a courier from point A to point B with that much data, why not send them with the real thing?
Well, unless you send two separate, the key is under separate cover.
Yeah, if you start next to one another and then one of you goes farther away, you can come back.
Well, then eventually you realize there is no data and there is no truth, and we're all just waves in the soup, and then you just send garbage. And then you get modern politics.
Nope, I was going to make a Trump joke. I'm going to stop myself.
As long as it's funny, I don't care.
I feel like if I do that, I'm opening the door and I know what happens.
I don't care. Lee has made like 5 Trump jokes on the show at some point or another, and they were all funny.
Right,
so I have an algorithm.
If you bomb, I will not save you.
Okay, I'm not doing it. I'm not opening that door.
Okay. It's probably for the best. Burnt spies are another example of something where anonymity goes away over time. Right, as a spy does his job, he would meet more people would know who he is, the odds of someone being able to identify him goes up. So anonymity becomes a worse and worse strategy. This is why it's offensive. It depends on almost the element of surprise, even if it's an elongated element of surprise in order to function. Of course, with the exception of what Rocco said about that type of one-time
I can't
pad.
think of a way that you would be anonymous, defensively.
Right, there isn't a way. I don't think there is. So, feel free to shoot me down if I'm wrong, but I don't think there is a way to be anonymous defensively.
Accidentally, maybe.
And this is really important because I think sometimes I see people being encouraged to be anonymous on the internet.
I know how.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. You kill the person after they discovered you.
After they discovered you.
That's defensive.
Is that like that Benjamin Franklin quote where it's like 3 people can keep a secret if 2 are dead or something like that?
Or you could
I would argue that's just security through obscurity. And actually that eventually, so there's a thing it's well understood in the computer field because of course everything moves faster, you find out faster. The great thing about computers is if you're wrong, you find out really fast, right? Because things move quickly, right? You can run simulations and try a million things a second, and right? So security it's pretty well known that security, feel free to shoot me down if I think I'm wrong, but that security through obscurity is no security at all. It just gives the illusion of security. So I would say murdering someone to cover up another murder is really just an addition of security through obscurity on top of anonymity as an offensive strategy. Well, it isn't really.
It comes down to the temporal value of information. So classified information, according to the U.S. government, is a thing.
Did he just give you chills? You went like this.
No, it was a deep breath. It was like inhale, breathe, hold it,
this guy's going to talk again.
No, it is really, it's like, should be considered flattering.
Thank you.
Yeah, something good's coming.
Yeah, the temporal value of information. Secrets that are classified by the military have a shelf life of 30 years.
Right.
And there's an expectation that after 30 years, the value of the information, keeping the information confidential, is of no more military value.
Right. Yes,
so
I agree. And actually,
the position of some platoon in some war in 1960 is really not of any interest in 1990.
Right. Agreed. I see the value.
Well,
I see the value in that argument.
There could be a strategy that they didn't want. Especially if it hasn't been revealed, that they don't want to reveal.
Right.
Sure, but there's an
most part.
there's an expectation that there's just a time horizon on maintenance of classified data because it's expensive. Maintaining secrecy, it costs money. Up until you destroy it, and then it doesn't cost anything. I never
thought of
that. But this is the same argument with the confidentiality for encryption, right? DES from the 1980s is a 40-bit key, and we can crack it in under 24 hours today. Were you alive in the 1980s?
I was.
Do you have a social security number?
I do.
Did you have a bank account in the 1980s?
I feel like this is going down a bad path.
Right. So if
Like,
you're
because I feel like, you know.
if your bank transmitted your information,
Yeah, he already owns you. Just accept it.
if your bank transmitted information in the 1980s,
Phone.
Can I say the F word here?
Yes.
if your
So
bank
polite.
transmitted information
Wait,
about
I should
you,
be nice to this one, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Be mean to this one.
Yeah. Yeah, all you can do is write mean things about you on his corporate websites.
Yeah, is it too
Yeah.
late for me to laugh at your jokes?
go right.
Now she's getting it.
But something. Thank you. Fear is the best way to get an
Yeah,
audience,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Knock my watch
Yeah,
off.
But the value, the value of that information is much longer than like a tactical positioning sort of thing, right?
Okay.
So your bank account number and your name transmitted across a wire in 1989 or something via DES is fully available to anybody who happened to say, "Oh, I'm going to take that encrypted information, I'm going to shove it in a little drawer."
That's not good.
Right. Because your social security number didn't change.
Right.
Well, it's okay if you recognize what an anonymity really is. That's the problem, is that people don't realize that it's an offensive strategy only.
Right.
It only lasts for a certain, it has a shelf life. You may not know what the shelf life is when you use it, but it has a shelf life.
Right.
But the utility of that information should be shorter than that shelf life.
Agreed.
Like, we shouldn't care when it comes out.
At least you might get it wrong, but at least you should take a stab at making them match.
Right.
Yeah.
So something like a social security number, which is supposed
Good.
to follow you
Excellent.
for your entire natural life, kind of important that you keep it confidential and secure for that length of time. The fact that we can't do that is sort of a problem. So the solution is not, we need better encryption or we need whatever. It's this piece of information has to have a value horizon. And
Or the validation process for
Right.
filtering through.
needs to become something
Yes.
else, which is one of the reasons, to go into total different non sequitur field, is why biometrics are really entertaining to me. Because it's like, I'm going to use my fingerprint to secure something.
I hate that.
And then,
Yeah.
well, great, now my fingerprint's gone.
Yeah, we've had a couple of awakening moments here with
what now?
biometrics.
Not a big fan of biometrics.
Look, I really, of course, there's going to be things that people don't know that they find out on the show, and it's live, and I don't want people to feel bad, but I've definitely had a few people who are in the field have a moment of zen with biometrics when we talk the full conversation out, and they realize, oh my
wait,
God.
yeah.
Because the thing is, there's going to be unintended, when you have the full spectrum of biometrics available to you for someone, when all that stuff is out there and everything's been stolen at least once and it's available in any black market, there's going to be terrible, complex, unintended consequences, especially as genetic science moves forward.
Right.
I mean, you could be cloning people. I mean, it's crazy. The sci-fi implications are out of this world.
I mean, you could go through individual fingers and then mark them off as pwned and move on to the next.
Right.
Right, but the thing is, this is...
But then when you run out of 10 fingers...
Don't use
I was
biometrics.
going to say, pretty soon you're going to see me at my ATM with my toe like up on the side of it.
Don't be lazy. We know passwords are hard. Use them anyway, because you can change them.
Right.
They're disposable.
But that's the thing. You need to change them in
Because
such
you're
a way that you
recognizing
need
that anonymity is
need a time horizon.
strategy, an offensive strategy.
Oh, so you do that? Like you
I
actually
rotate
change
my
it?
passwords.
You do that?
I rotate my RSA keys. I rotate
Oh.
everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, haven't you
that?
gotten the email yet?
What?
So there's fake emails. There's been a few older companies that had their password databases compromised because, of course, everything eventually comes up, right? So I've had older passwords as the headline subject headline to
Oh, that's
emails sent to
horrible.
me.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter. They're long gone.
Right.
I rotated
No, I
them
mean-
out years ago. So I just laugh.
Right.
That's funny. I know what year you did that.
Right.
I know what website you
Yeah,
got.
I know
from.
exactly, right? So
That's my old Yahoo account. Isn't that great?
yeah, that's great.
Aren't
Fuck
you
you,
cute?
Yahoo! But this is a direct. Thank you for connecting those two likey thing, connecty things, and connecty mixy things. To use a Buffy the Vampire quote. And anonymity that's a perfect example of what happens when you don't treat anonymity like an offensive strategy.
Right.
It comes back and bites you later, and it just every time you use it. And people are out there; they're trying to be anonymous. Look at one of the examples is Antifa. They beat up a guy in the street. They're like, we're wearing masks. Yeah, well, those aren't the only cameras where you beat the guy up and you were wearing masks.
Right.
There were cameras on the street before, and cameras on the street before, and cameras on the street before, and you just keep tracing the cameras back, and eventually you get to the one where they put their mask on.
And there are cameras everywhere now.
Exactly. So, anonymity is not, I think it's a honeypot at this point. To me it's so obvious. It almost feels like
it's a long shot right now if you think that you're anonymous anywhere.
Right,
really.
right.
It's a long shot.
I just feel like it's a Leo honeypot. Sorry if I'm ruining your honeypot, guys.
Look at the Charlie One thing though, where they tracked down where he was hanging the flag by flight patterns.
Right. The flight. What birds were native to that area? Which planes were in the sky at what part at what time?
Astronomy.
Shia both ended up playing a political game of capture the flag with a bunch of people, and some people in 4chan who didn't like his political leaning said, "Well, we're gonna get your flag," and he said, "Well, I'm gonna hide my flag," and so he hid his flag, and then they figured out stuff from the environment. And where his flag was, and took his flag. Yeah, he didn't mean for it to
live streaming the flag
more than once.
4 times.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
the people on 4chan were calling it weaponized autism, but it's pretty spectacular.
Oh man.
True or not, it's pretty spectacular.
Right. I'm not offended by that. No. Wear it like a badge.
People in IT, there's tons of people in IT with Asperger's. There's people in IT.
Tons.
People
everywhere.
in IT with schizophrenia. We have to stop treating disease like it's the third rail and actually start accepting people.
It's not even really a disease.
It's just an attribute.
It's a diverse.
It's like something you need to roll for in D&D, Yeah, I'm on the spectrum.
I mean that's a whole other conversation. I would be happy to talk about that during.
But it's true, right?
Yeah.
Can you pick this lock? I got a 17 on my autism spectrum. Yeah, I can pick that lock. I can play the violin while I do it.
God, I don't want to see what this world would look like without people with on the autism spectrum. I just don't even want to know what this world would look like.
Yeah.
What's that?
You wouldn't have Facebook.
Yeah, maybe not.
We wouldn't have anything.
We wouldn't have floppy drives. Oh wait, we don't have floppy drives.
Yeah, we don't have that anymore.
All right, so I guess you guys get the point. I don't think anyone's arguing with me. So let's move on to the next one. All right, so what is the most gifted person that you've had to reject a business relationship with? This is funny. It just segued right into the next topic.
Gifted person?
Like a person with amazing gifts. They have talent. They have something to contribute. You think they can be part of your organization, but they're just
annoying,
sick, addicted, criminal. Some element of them that just makes them extremely dangerous to have around, and you had to reject them.
Dangerous.
You probably don't want to have their name. You don't want to say their name, but you can if you want. But I would say don't if you're not sure. But yeah, I mean, like I'll give you an example. This is something that came up with a conversation. Like I was in bands. We found a great singer. He was addicted to heroin. So they
made him better.
We turned him away. No, because we were afraid.
Bad.
No, he was a great singer, but I was afraid he was going to rob my house.
Right.
Because he was, what happened? Sure, he was lucrative right now. What happened when the money dried up?
Yeah.
He's going to come over for a practice, and then my china closet is going to be emptied out. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. Has there been anything that you're willing to share with something like that?
I mean, I can tell you the type of people I'm most attracted to with respect to working.
That's kind of the opposite.
It is. Because I can't think of,
No, that's not kind of the opposite. That is the opposite.
I will work with almost anyone because I like diversity. I really do.
I do
Even
too.
if you're annoying, I'll take.
Well, this is spearheading the problem with diversity, right? When diversity goes over the mountain and past the peak.
Overly.
And where it's literally like it's a train wreck.
The person that I
person
am
in,
least
like
likely to hire,
in the house.
the person I'm least likely to hire is a person who is extraordinarily toxic to the work culture and environment. Mm-hmm. So you can be super talented, but if you're going to make everyone's life around you miserable and make them less talented because of your misery, it's toxic, and I wouldn't hire you.
Right.
So I think personality plays a big role, unless of course, you're going to be siloed.
So I
You're
will
gonna
say,
be-
yeah, keep going.
No, I mean I think that if your work style, if you're a miserable person,
That's a very good insight about the siloing. I like that. That's good.
If you're a miserable person, you contribute, you're creative, but you don't spread your misery because you like to stay in your office, I'm okay with that too.
So one of the things I didn't mention before when we were talking about mental illnesses is psychopaths. Psychopaths are workaholics.
Empathically impaired?
Empathically impaired, yeah. You know, but like, I don't think it's a spectrum. I think they're just psychopaths or they're not.
You don't think it's a spectrum?
I don't think it's a spectrum. I think
Really?
it's on or off. I think what you think is a spectrum is when you see people like us expressing our psychopathic virtues, because we have that too. Because remember, I think that they evolved from us. I'm sorry, we evolved from them, so we have all their attributes. They don't have all of ours. So we can act like monsters. They can't act like empathetic people.
Wow, we have a lot to catch up on. Like we have like
Yeah. But with those premises in mind, actually siloing is psychopaths are extremely effective. You know, especially if they're intelligent. I mean, they could work. I mean, I had James Fallon, who's a self-admitted sociopath scientist, tell me, yeah, our big advantage is we can work 20 hours a day.
one of my dearest
It doesn't bother them.
friends is empathically impaired.
Empathically impaired. Well, it could just be an emotional state too. You know, I think that you can. So we'll talk in the.
We'll talk later.
I think that's proto-psychopathy. I don't think it's psychopathy. It could look just like psychopathy. In fact, in some cases, wives of serial killers who help them are a good example. They're frequently empaths. They just got wrapped up in it. They got brainwashed.
It could be sadist too, though.
Yeah. Well, there could be sadists. I mean, who doesn't like, a little, stabby? But,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Oh, the camera's on, isn't it? Okay. I was talking about the movies, folks. The movies.
Yes, Halloween.
Halloween, yes.
We
yes.
edit? No? Live?
By the way, I'd like to point out our engineer is wearing just a redirect, I'd like to point out our engineer is wearing a Freddy Krueger sweater.
What was that?
I'm hiding from stabby. I don't want to get stabby.
You know what? You're not the scariest person in the room anymore?
No, it's great.
Yeah, nice.
Matt.
Nice. That's my job, actually, is to
Yeah.
be the scary.
Yeah.
So, I'm doing it well.
Yeah.
He's hiding behind a Rubik's Cube.
Yes, sir, you are.
I solved one side.
Why did I? You
That's
did?
an algorithm I wish I knew.
Yeah. Well, in fairness to you,
Is that the third question?
It's
like, what algorithm do you wish you knew? And it's how to solve a Rubik's.
You know, it's a learned skill. My nephew,
yeah.
shout out to Zach Cespedes, actually knows how to do that in like a fraction of like a minute.
Right.
So fast.
I've seen a comedian do it as part of his comedy sketch. He'll razz people and he'll razz hecklers while he solves a Rubik's Cube.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But you can learn it.
Yeah. But I'm not cool.
No?
No.
You're not a robot.
I never memorized the pattern for the Rubik's Cube.
If
but
we were
I did
really
memorize-
cyborgs, he would have looked it up and no one would even know he did.
Right.
I did memorize the pattern for like the sliding picture puzzles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That algorithm I had
there's a-
memorized.
So he is a robot. Okay. I, for one, welcome our robot masters. Okay, so I was just, nobody else wants to jump in there? Just me and Jeannie?
People I won't work with.
People you want, someone you wouldn't work, you can give a specific example, but like, don't give too many details. Like, what was wrong with them? What was what was their gift and what was wrong with them? You just couldn't work with them. For me, it's smelly people. I just, I mean, come on, man. I mean, I'm okay with 2 days, but like, if you're in IT, always take a shower on the second day, because if there's an emergency, you go to day 3, dude.
That's weird.
But
Okay.
it happens.
It's
It
a
happens all the
thing.
freaking time. It's a thing.
Lawyers don't have this thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever encountered that.
Yeah, day. Always shower on day 2, because you never know when there'll be an unexpected day 3, right? So.
Okay.
No, nothing. Okay.
That's
Fair
how
enough. Fair enough. It's a scary question. I get it. All right, because I'm scary, savvy. So. Beep, beep, beep.
You're not scary. No, sir.
No, I'm not scary. So what action? Except for a disaster, like a terrorist attack.
Okay.
What action can we take about the growing markets of durable goods? So what I mean by this is like refrigerators, cars, cameras, anything and everything is connected to the internet these days when it
Right.
ships. So typically these things, the Internet of Things, anything in the Internet of Things is a durable, whether it's a durable good or not, has a lifespan. And this is what we're talking about, anonymity, right? So it has a lifespan. It's expected to last 5 years or 10 years or 20 years.
Or is designed.
Or is designed that long and expected to last that long, both by the consumer and by, economists, statisticians,
Okay.
the company that sold it, the company that services it.
Talking about those Internet of Things.
The Internet of Things, right? And they put it permanently on the internet and invite you to put it on the internet and maybe even give you key features to put it on the
Never
internet.
gets a security patch once.
And it never gets a security patch once, or it only gets security patches for a year or two, and then it just dies off because there's no guarantee of future security patches. A lot of these things run Linux. We all know Linux well enough to know that security holes come out all the time. I think Jeannie even knows that too. How often do you have to do patches on the internet? Everybody in the know knows this about. There will always be another security hole. Why is there no patch path upgrade? Does anybody have any insight on this? What's the possibility of legally requiring companies to have a tactile internet off switch, where you literally disconnect the wire so it could not connect to the internet if it wanted to? Requiring companies to put that on everything that is connected to the internet.
So that
Whether it's a dip switch or a big honking, skunk or whatever it is, something physical, so you can't.
So that if they stop patching.
Right, so you could shut the internet off on it and know definitively, the consumer.
The consumer, okay.
Yeah, can know definitively, I have flipped the switch, this thing is not on the internet.
Right.
So at least, if they're not going to give a patch path, you can shut off the internet.
Yeah, why not? I think that's feasible.
I mean, why is this not #1 topic? And do we have to wait till there's an attack or a problem? I mean,
No.
there was a botnet of tens of thousands of security cameras. Isn't that enough? Do we have to wait till it's cars, people?
So this
Your
is a
engineer
perfect,
wants you.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
This is a perfect example of something we spoke about earlier, though, isn't it? Like where we were saying, so you have an idea. You're in a great position to understand fully the implications of this issue, potentially. Now, whose responsibility is it to lobby Congress? Like, whose responsibility is it?
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to get a groundswell of people angry about this because I can't. I mean, I've talked to companies about it. I've talked to, casually, not formally.
No, take all that off the table. You're trying to come up with a regulatory solution to what is ultimately a liability problem.
Right, and also potentially a problem to go into.
Lawyers and insurance companies.
You as a consumer have this device. You bought it, you operate it, and it's doing bad things.
Right.
Or it could do bad things.
Or it could do bad things. Who's liable? Well, the company that manufactured it says they're not liable because, we did whatever we did, and
industry standard. Blah,
and it's
blah,
yeah,
blah,
yeah,
blah,
and
blah.
it's Joey Jojo bought it, and
Yeah.
Joey Jojo runs it, and he doesn't know how the hell to use it, but his internet is now being used to attack a third party. So where does the liability get assigned?
But
everybody in the present hacking situation is a victim. And nobody's liable except for some anonymous bad guy out in the world. And until that changes,
Some mustache
none of
stroker.
this Until that changes, none of this is going to get fixed.
Yeah.
Because
So is it-
everybody can say they're a victim and nobody's responsible, and so it's not going to get fixed.
So it's a hacker image problem.
A hacker image problem? No,
it's a liability
I think
issue.
it's a
Who do you
liability.
blame?
The consumer needs to be on the hook for this kind of thing, because then the consumer is going to make choices for their products to protect themselves from becoming liable for attacking
How do we
third
put them on the
parties.
hook with the minimalist amount of damage?
Why do you want to minimize it?
Well, I'm not saying that, dogs and cats falling from the sky and people on fire
Well,
isn't fun.
you mentioned dogs and cats. If your dog goes and bites somebody, are you responsible?
Right, of course.
Okay, if your home security camera starts hacking into the Pentagon, are you responsible?
Right. So lawyers, we need more lawyers on this. We need more lawsuits.
Well,
No, I mean it's not wrong.
the option
there's
isn't
been a
even
lot of
there. The option
Right.
isn't there right now. So how could you hold someone liable when it's impossible for them to?
It's
have an
very
alternative?
possible for them to physically do it, but since there's almost no examples of what good behavior
Yeah, I
is,
think-
it's very hard to hold up a good example.
I
and say,
think more
why aren't you
likely
doing
to
this?
make the manufacturer liable because 9 times out of 10, the consumer has no option to disable this feature on this device.
Well, this is exactly what government is for, though. I mean, it's also for
And they're not
security-
doing anything. Yeah.
But they don't. Okay, so technology, you yourself has said
Mm-hmm.
that technology moves very rapidly. So
Right.
it's it's not unlike, it's not,
Well, this is why I try to make it as simple as possible. A
Right.
tactile switch shuts all
there
internet
you go.
traffic
But
off.
somebody needs to communicate that there's a need to our elected officials.
Yeah.
So there's like a gap there. You can't assume that they know and they are all knowing and they're the most brilliant people in the world that know about everything. They just don't. So like that's goes
probably
back
fair.
to our earlier conversation. Like we.
So but do you think it's possible without having an example company, like the good example, to compare them to? Do we need that, or is that the right avenue to pursue?
helps.
To push a company to do the right thing and put a tactical
you can do
switch
it that
in?
way too. You could do it that way.
Or
too.
can we just go straight to lawmakers and say, look, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see how you need to
A
be able to disconnect
vulnerability.
the antenna to this thing no matter what.
Right.
Is that going to stifle innovation?
No way. No freaking way is that going to stifle innovation. It's so you know as well as I. Usually antennas are 2, 3, maybe 4 wires. It's you can buy those switches in bulk. You can buy those switches for pennies. It will cost pennies per device
Right.
to have a tactile switch.
Yeah, what good is an Alexa when you disconnect it from the internet?
It's not my fucking problem, man.
Okay.
You know what? I mean, if you bought an Alexa and it's being hacked and you decide to leave it on because you like the convenience and your Alexa is attacking the White House and the Secret Service pays you a visit, fuck you. You did it. You should have shut the goddamn thing
That's-
off when the service announcements came out.
That's what I'm advocating.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay.
And it doesn't require regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but who is reading these service announcements? Certainly not my
Nobody is.
grandmother.
Yeah,
Like no one's
exactly.
reading them. So,
Right.
I mean, you can have a
But
feel-good
if-
law
if-
that gets people in trouble for things like that, or you can have like a real law.
Well, think about the alternatives. Let's say, okay, so let's go to the bad scenario, right? So I'll give you the worst case scenario.
Right.
Cars, right? The terrorist group figures out which car law enforcement drives in a particular city. They hack all those cars in the city, and now the police are completely immobilized because their only way of getting around, their only mode of transportation, is permanently on the internet with a hacked car. So all they can do is leave the batteries disconnected, because the second they connect the batteries, the car's going to start up and drive off and do something terrible.
Taxi.
Right?
Right, but I mean,
so,
you could also
if they
have
had
it-
put those tactile switches there, all they'd have to do is go, boop, and now the city's safe.
Right.
They didn't do that. That's the worst case. I mean, they did it in a movie. They did it in Fast and Furious 7.
But now you're-
sure, it's a goofy movie, but
Now you're engineering a product that has 2 modes of operation, one which is entirely manual and another one which is augmented or driven, no pun intended, by a centralized control system.
right. Yeah.
Is that not going to drive up the price? Is that not going to cause all kinds of situations?
So my rational side says, I see your point. Yes, there is an additional cost. My irrational side says, fuck them. Eat it. That was the cost of doing business all along. You just got away and skated this long.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
Should I bring up the 737 MAX?
Yes. Bring it up. Bring it up.
Ouch.
Go for it.
So the 737 MAX has a piece of software
Yep.
which interprets a particular sensor, which causes it to try to pull itself out of what is assumed to be a nosedive.
Sensor with no redundancy.
Well, in certain models.
Okay. Oh, you have to pay extra.
Yeah, you had to pay.
You have to pay extra for this redundant sensor.
Which is crazy because planes have multiple redundant CAN buses.
Yes, and
sensors for everything.
Boeing put out, an addition to the pilot's manual that says if this happens to you, turn the damn system off, and you'll be fine. Here's where the switches are. You reach down from the pilot on the left and go click click, and it goes away. And if you don't read it, you go crashing into the desert. Liability seems to be on Boeing for this.
I'm not sure
Well,
why.
there was more to it than that. They had training.
If it is as you described it,
They omitted
that's the pilot's
they
fault.
omitted the existence of that switch from their training programs.
Right.
Oh, well then it's on Boeing.
Yeah,
You can't have a feature you don't tell anyone about.
Right.
It was
And
in the
also,
manual,
you
but they
would-
didn't train anyone on it.
Right.
Well, they didn't train anybody, period, because it was basically assumed that the 737 MAX was the same as the 737, and you
Well,
didn't require recertification.
The thing was, that was the announcement from Boeing. That's why they were liable. Because they said Boeing said there is no difference between this plane and this plane. If you know how to drive this plane, you can drive this plane. You don't have to learn anything new. That's what Boeing said.
But they
That's
did-
why Boeing is liable.
But they did put out an advisory indicating this is the thing, here's the fix, and we're working on a fix.
Yeah.
And so
at one
it gets
point
really
you're changing the
complicated.
computer. Must read advisories.
Yeah.
Yeah, your plane's in a nosedive. Oh, let me read the manual.
Yeah.
Well, this is the same thing.
I want
Actually,
my pilot reading
Like
the
the-
manual.
This is kind of the same problem as with the with periodicals today. You know, retractions are all on page 52. Why aren't the
Right.
retractions on
If
page
they
1?
exist.
Right.
You know, New York Times just ran an ad for me. Actually, someone else complained about it, trying to get me to come back. Right on Twitter. You know, fine. Put all the retractions on page 1. I'll come back.
Retractions. They just edit the articles silently now, man.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want. Fucking retractions because I want to see where they screwed up.
What do you
right?
mean they don't?
They
put a
edit them on the.
They don't
internet.
tell you they made an edit. They just
They
do
just
it.
edit the articles in place
But
at the URL.
But the actual newspaper itself, they.
Oh,
print
the newspaper itself, you
retractions.
can't like do a retraction, but on like the New York Times web edition, you
would be
know, it's like
spectacular
2019/07/
That would be Harry
paper
Potter.
change?
shit.
Wave the wand.
No,
Nothing
it's
like
just,
that? Wow.
just changes silently.
Wow.
You have
okay.
to go looking in
But
the,
with the-
Internet Archive and go diffing, and it's like, oh, wait a second, that term changed.
Yeah, I mean, if an enterprising hacker, this would be a great situation where you could use the blockchain. I think where you could keep, you know, I mean, in a way, we kind of have it already with Everpedia. Everpedia is a Wikipedia-like work-alike that has that's on the blockchain. But if you have it on the blockchain, it's much harder to delete things. So you can keep track of retractions from periodicals on there, and you could use something like archive.org to like compare, you know, a page before to a page now, and then keep track of the retractions. It would be
Right.
a great project. You could probably automate the whole goddamn thing, and you could humiliate some big liars. And I'm not saying the New York Times may be the best of them all, but the fact that they're doing it at all puts them in a bad light.
Yeah, I don't like that. I
don't
mean,
like that
I think
either.
they should probably somewhere in the article.
I mean, how are kids even supposed to cite sources anymore?
Right.
Because there's no encyclopedias. That's usually what they went to, and now
Right.
they go to the webpage. The freaking webpage changes,
Right.
and this is like, and the teachers are trying to teach kids bibliographies, and they're like, oh, what do we teach kids about what
Yeah.
truth is? You know, it doesn't even have to be accurate. Sometimes it's more important that it's citable than it's accurate. That's the whole point of bibliography.
Right.
I miss microfiche.
Aww.
Still there. It's still there. Yeah.
It's in
Do you
floppy
know-
heaven now.
Yeah.
Do you know, do you know the reason why Boeing had that special system installed to control I think it was the elevator for that plane?
No, I don't.
So the reason why they had this sensor set to automatically nose down the plane if it thought it was nosing up was because they wanted to put, on the MAX 8, they wanted to put a more fuel economical engine on the plane, which was Airbus was doing, and they wanted to put the same engine. I forgot the manufacturer of the engine. They wanted the same engine. It was physically taller, the new engine, and it didn't clear the ground with the landing gear they were using. So rather than put taller landing gear on, they allowed the engine's thrust to nose the plane up slightly and just programmed the computer to compensate based on this sensor, rather than re-engineer taller landing gear.
I need more hands.
All they had to do was engineer tooling landing gear, but instead they built this computer system to compensate for the lack of aerodynamics.
This is what I worry about with the Teslas too, because there's so much constant re-engineering going into the Teslas. I wonder how much of the Tesla's performance and compensation, like stability systems are
I
the same
will
exact
never
thing.
see Tesla the same again after you told me that story.
Which story? Oh, the porn. Yeah. So I before the show, I told her about the porno shot in the Tesla when it was on autopilot.
I'm never gonna.
Yeah. Someone, you didn't hear about this? So there was okay. We'll do it again. There was there was
I'll look it up later.
No. It's exactly what it sounds like. Someone put their Tesla on autopilot and shot a porn inside it. And Elon Musk actually chimed in and I was like, yeah, that was going to happen.
The future is here.
The future is here.
But
TTP has been reached for
You know what? Porn
Teslas.
drives all
Tied to
technology.
penis.
I promise.
So when that car
Yes,
hits somebody
nobody
who's liable.
Oh, by the way, we've also reached TTP on the Technocrat Live because someone actually drew a penis last
If
time I
there's a
brought up
driver in the
TTP.
driver's
Oh,
seat,
nice.
then the driver.
Sorry. So who's liable?
The driver.
If there's a driver in the driver's seat, then the driver.
This is bullshit because that's a holdover from the old cruise control laws. That's what the requirement to put your hands on the wheel, because people started suing companies saying the cruise control was like an AI and it had taken over, this could govern speed. And so they passed a law saying that you must be in full attendance as a driver at all times. But that was for the simplest possible case of all car systems was for cruise control. Guys, you got to update the law, man. Cars are doing a lot more than just cruise control these days.
Same thing though, because Tesla, there's actually, I don't know if you know about this, but there's features built into a Tesla now where there's actually like capacitive sensors on the wheel. When you take your hand off the wheel, it will tell you to put it back on. If you keep your hand off, then it will pull the car over to the side of the road and it will not turn back on autopilot and you have to drive the rest of the way home manually.
Are they going to put
There'll be a workaround.
Or when are they going to put the breathalyzer in? Because I would imagine you can get a DUI sitting behind the wheel of a Tesla that's driving itself.
Right.
I wonder if people sleep while they're driving their Tesla.
Well, you see,
Are they driving their Tesla?
Right.
This is. We were just talking about
Somebody has
this.
just fallen asleep.
It happens all the time in traffic. People have dozed off.
Someone on like an expressway in Los Angeles, and he was just literally sleeping with his hands like this, and
that is frightening.
That is, but on the other hand, the drunk case, I'd rather have the car driving than the drunk. So the fact that we have all
but
these
why are we
laws,
choosing with these
these
those
laws that we're
options?
putting there, we're putting everything in the driver is actually protecting
There
the
are
company.
three options,
We're
Matt.
protecting the company from liability.
Yeah, she's right.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are three options.
That's
Like
it.
you're saying either the drunk person drives it, the car drives itself, but what about the third option?
Which is the person who gives up drinking and their life of sin.
There is an infinity of options
the
before
infinity
us.
of options. Like no one drives.
Right.
Like you're fucking drunk.
Take a cab.
Take a cab. Take an Uber.
Look, man,
Call a friend.
how did I get? See, this is why stabby, because somehow I become the advocate of drunk driving.
Didn't he say he liked free speech? I mean,
Something like that.
I thought I remember that earlier,
I
but
vaguely
now
recall.
he's
No, it's okay. I don't
Stabby.
mind being the bad guy.
Okay,
So the bad
okay.
guy position, I'm saying that now I'm going to be the technocrat and say fuck democracy and people can't think for themselves.
Okay.
And of course, some people are always going to drink and drive. So in that case, isn't the best thing to just have the car take over on the case where the person's
Is
drinking?
it it's like
if
she only hits me a
if it
little.
immobilizes itself, they won't buy that car anymore.
Yeah.
And if it drives them home, then they've gotten home safely. But if you have them insist on them participating in the car's driving, then it's going to crash because they drunkenly drove it into a tree and possibly a cheerleader.
Yeah, but you're giving two
Because we
poor
care more about
options.
cheerleaders
You're
than
giving
other
two
people.
poor options and having us choose. I'm just saying that
Right.
there's more.
I'm just saying that if I'm going to be a good steward, I'm going to make the choices, and the choice I choose is that the company should be liable, because that way we can have the drunk drivers chauffeured home. I don't want to be hit by one of them.
The pro would be if we do make the companies liable, then they would put a breathalyzer in.
Agreed. And in fact, we should even put a nanny to say no cursing and hit their fingers when they curse while they're driving, because that can lead to road rage.
Yes.
I'll take care of everything. You just sit back and let the computer take over. Big Brother is here for you.
Evil Tesla.
Yes. So see, I can be the evil guy when I need to. Yeah. So I mean, there's an advantage to letting drunks just fucking let the car drive them home. I'd rather Teslas were driving drunks home than them trying to drive themselves.
I agree with that framed question. It framed exactly that way.
Right.
Yes, I agree with you. It's better to have a car drive itself than a drunk person drive
Right.
the car.
Yeah.
As
Agreed.
between those two options.
Right. And I mean, look, there's crappy people making crappy decisions all the time.
Yes.
And sometimes they have money and enough money for a Tesla. And eventually the self-driving-ish cars will be good enough. I don't know how the hell I'm the anti-self-driving car guy, which is really funny that I'm on this side of this
zealously
argument.
advocating
But I can
for
argue
it.
both sides of it. So I am really I don't think self-driving cars are going to work near term. I think maybe 20 years from now they're going to work, but I'm very nervous. They can't. A lot of people are arguing, oh, it'll be next year, and actually I think if anything, it's going to be they can't just be as good as people. They have to be way better than people because of liability issues. But also we shouldn't have legal roadblocks that completely prevent them from existing either. It should be we can't have it both ways. We can't have self-driving cars that are going to take everything over, but yet somehow it's still your fault because you're sitting in the driver's seat. That's bullshit.
Well, okay.
We can't put every truck driver out of business.
But there's a difference between the car messed up and I was sleeping, or the
Right.
car messed up and.
Well, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that if the car is going to assume the responsibility, then it should also assume the liability. It should be the person and the person, or the car and the car, not the person, the good on the car and the bad on the person. That's like being in baseball and you're the coach.
I think
everything's your
It
fault.
depends on the circumstances. That's where I'll go.
So
Depends on the
here's
circumstance.
here's an entertaining alternative future.
Yes.
that I frankly think is much more likely when you get down to it.
Okay.
A few years from now, we're going to realize this whole auto driving thing is really stupid.
That is possible, in which case I'm ranting against the air.
Yes.
But what we're going to have is 5G networks in major metropolitan areas and cars that have all of the actuators necessary to
Drive by wire.
turn wheels and drive by wire. So now you're drunk
I see where you're going with
and
this.
you call the remote driving service, and Bill, who would ordinarily be driving your cab, is actually logged into your car and drives you home remotely.
Drone cars.
Exactly.
That's
Drone
a really
mode in
interesting
cars.
concept.
Yeah. So you're going to wind up in a situation where you have drone drivers who are literally professional drivers, and it's like, hey, bring me to work. Okay.
Or at minimum, they're co-pilots.
Absolutely. Monitoring an automatic system. You could have maybe one driver and 9 cars at the same time.
Wait.
Latency free though.
This is why I'm saying 5G networks within metropolitan areas. I would love to see this for trucks, because we're having a truck driver shortage, and the ability to have a truck driver be able to just like get behind the wheel of a rig, and then you're not stopping your truck anymore because of one of the biggest problems with long haul trucking is you need rest periods, mandatory
One
DOT
man's
rest
labor
periods.
shortage is another man's labor glut, but go on.
Exactly. Sure. But you have mandatory rest periods. Driver A drives for 8 hours, and driver B literally logs into the truck and does the next haul, and then driver C or driver A comes back, and you can wind up in a situation where you're maximizing the resource by having a remote driver log into the system and just get, like, here's your windshield, here's your ding, beep, beep, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, and you can have the truck driver in there all the
whole
while.
And then we will have reached full TTP for truck drivers.
Sure. But
Yeah.
but the point is that you don't have a computer doing it. You have a professional driver who does
ask
this.
what TTP is.
Time to penis.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's
how you measure
drawing
how
the
advanced any
penis?
technology is.
Okay.
Yeah. As soon as you reach TTP, it's a mature technology.
Okay, got it.
Most video games is about 5 minutes.
But
Sorry.
But,
Thanks,
yeah.
Tom, for that one.
there's
You're watching.
there's an alternative future for you.
Yeah, I like it.
that I can.
You might be right.
Time
I
is a
think that's.
construct. It could be
Yeah.
future history.
I bet you if Elon Musk actually announced that, I mean, it's like the
People
next
would lose their shit.
Yeah, it's the next generation of OnStar, basically.
Yeah,
Whereas-
you know what? That might actually be. Some people have observed that the 5G push seems to be non-organic. Like there's not a demand for it, which of course makes sense because there's no product that uses it right now. But that would be a product that would absolutely need it. So yeah, could be a
And you
push
have a-
behind the scenes and say, everything ain't working out.
And you have a
5G
brand new
make-
profession.
Oops, sorry.
You have a brand new profession for semi-unskilled labor,
Yeah.
which is going to become a problem.
Yeah.
Does 5G make an amazing hotspot though?
Yes. In fact, I think that this is actually going to be a third-way competitor for most cable networks
Yes,
and FiOSs.
that's what I'm thinking. Maybe
Yeah,
there's
people are just
no
going to buy
one
them and just
technology.
put them on the
Ooh,
desk and
yeah,
forget
I'd
about them,
love
and they're
to
just
not
going to
have
be their
pay for
internet for the
that.
house.
I would love to not have to pay for that. I'm already paying for it
Right.
to my phone.
Yeah. So I mean, that would right now the only thing that 5G is on my roadmap for is exactly that,
Hotspots.
just hotspots.
Done.
Okay.
Are we like
So,
on a
well, that was
time thing here?
passionate. I like that, guys. Let's do that more. Okay,
Nice.
cool. So,
The hacker
So
needs
what's-
to sleep.
Yeah,
So
I
what-
got to drive all the way back to New York, and I don't have somebody to drive my car for me.
Oh man.
that sucks, man. I'm sorry. I'm okay. Thanks. Good. Thank you. So,
I'm an old hacker. I don't stay up until 3 a.m. anymore.
You can
So-
do it.
So let's say you're building a team, right? You're in your workplace. And you're building a team. Your interviews are great. Your hires are in place the first day.
Excellent. Beautiful.
What's going to happen? What kind of behaviors will derail your team building? What kind of behaviors are the problems in a workspace? So
Man, I'm gonna go
it's kind
back
of a throwaway,
toxic
but
people, man, toxic people.
toxic people. You kind of answered this already, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of you definitely got a pass because it's just a repeat on what you said before.
Yeah.
But it's a good point,
Yeah.
right? If someone's making everything else super negative, thanks, man. So then they ruin everybody's mood, and then they're not focused on the work.
Right.
So how about you guys? Anything? Trying to build a team of whatever. So a team that's important to you. It doesn't really matter what the team is, but how do people ruin that team? How do they derail it? Is it siloing? Is it information hoarding? Is it, screaming at the top of the lungs all the time for no reason? Is it those damn noise canceling headphones that also scream as they walk around?
I just want competent people who are able to do the work and who don't bring their personal crap to the table.
Okay. Well, you do pen testing, right?
I fly solo mostly for this reason.
Yeah, I don't actually have much experience with this. I haven't built many teams.
Right, well, you've been on teams that other people have built, though.
Yeah, but I don't know. I have to say, at my job, we generally all get along pretty well, so I haven't really had.
Well,
that.
just forget you.
I haven't really had that headbutting experience.
Mr. Nice Guy over here, I get along with everybody.
He immediately went to the atmosphere. Like, that's what makes a good team.
Yeah,
You don't have the shithead who's like.
I've built and managed a lot of teams. It comes down to a certain level of mutual respect that if it's not there, you're never going to be able to get. And so if somebody is competent enough to be worth isolating and catering to even in the slightest way, then you do that. If not, just like get rid of them. There's probably somebody better.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a situation I generally enjoy dealing with. It's one of the ways remote work and things like version control mediated development winds up being really nice.
I get the impression that you're good at it, even if you don't like it. Definitely
being
one
a
of
manager?
my early lessons in life is that just because you like something doesn't mean you're good at it. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you like it.
Yeah, no, it's I've had very few complaints from people who are on my teams.
Excellent.
But it's not something.
Sound like a giver.
I'd rather not deal with that. I'd
Sound
rather
like more
get
like
the
a
work
giver
done.
than a taker.
Yeah, I'd rather get the work done. You know, so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it was just it was an opportunity to rant. Sometimes you're just in the mood to rant. And
Yeah, it's not a thing to rant about, really. It's just a sad situation in the world.
One thing I've had a problem with, and in a way, it was a calculated risk. So, I've said here on the show before, something I used to do, which I don't do anymore, is I used to kind of do a rope-a-dope thing, or I'd act dumber than I was. I would pretend to be less experienced, less intelligent, less knowledgeable, less observant than I actually was. And the advantage of that is you can Scotty everything. You can give people 3-day estimates and do it in a day, and everybody's always pleased with your performance because their expectations are really low. But the bad part about that is that sometimes people think you're a dupe, and they actually believe it. They buy in whole
You'd
hog.
be surprised.
And then people are like, oh, I'm going to take credit for your projects. Oh, I'm going to, So I think that's a big. You got to let people get credit when they do a good job.
Absolutely. 100%.
You have to have faith in your team, but you also have to, say you did it when they did it, and not just to them, to everyone. Say this person really, did it well. To give a positive example, if you don't do that, you're smoked.
Yeah.
You're dead. There's
agree
no
more.
trust. Yeah. So, I gave a rant. So there you go.
There you go.
There's my rant. All right.
The best advice, just to lay my portion of this to rest, the best advice I can give in terms of personnel is when you have to make a decision, make it decisively and clearly and follow through. It's like,
right.
Bob, you're not working out,
Yeah.
you're gone. Or, hey, Jim, good work, Jill, awesome.
Right.
You just
Or
keep your people
Or
happy.
Schnitzel Fritz, hey, you could do this better, and that would be
Right.
better for all of us.
Would you be happier if you were working from home, away from all the rest of this stuff? Let's give that a try.
Yeah,
And
let's give that a try is underrated. Definitely.
I agree.
A week from now, we'll look at what your output is. If it winds up being better, we're going to stay with that. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. If that doesn't work, go home.
Yeah, everyone has different work styles.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
You have to be flexible.
Be flexible, be adaptive. Work with your people.
Be appreciative.
Work
Try
with your
stuff.
people, but
Try stuff.
don't put up with stuff that just is not good for productivity.
Everyone. And
Right.
people will not respect you as a leader if you allow that kind of toxicity to continue.
Right. Yeah, agreed. Well, they might, but the consequences are front and center.
So, the other half of toxicity is people who have no skin, who are offended by everything and are, very
What?
Fragile people can
What are you talking about?
Exactly. Fragile people can be just as bad as toxic people.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain amount of rough and tumble, and there's a certain amount of hey, we've actually got to make some decisions. Waffling and sitting there and not participating, doing all the rest of that is just as bad.
Right.
I don't want you around.
I'm more likely to tolerate pretty easily a tender, soft person, fragile person, if they are amenable to listening to you.
Absolutely.
You know. Sometimes people are just sensitive, and I'm okay with that if they're positive and they're
Work with
I've seen that
individuals.
both ways. I've seen that. I've seen sensitive people be fine, and they're really just sensitive to how other people are perceiving them. And then I've seen sensitive people who are not actually being sensitive to the people around there. They're being judgmental of the people around them.
well, that's like a byproduct of sensitivity.
But they claim it's sensitive.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sensitive, but they're really being judged. What they're really saying is, I'm judging you.
Well, Google did. Maybe we can fact check this. I don't.
No, go ahead, go for it.
I remember.
On your case.
Yes, I remember reading a while ago that Google did some research on the most valuable efficiency tool that a company could have, and the most valuable efficiency tool I understand was psychological security. So I think if you create an environment where people feel secure, even those people who are maybe a little sensitive, maybe they will,
It's one of those things that you should give a shot to and cater to. It's
Yeah.
are you comfortable here around everybody?
There's
'Cause we're
definitely
a little,
been some crazy stories coming out of Google lately, though.
Work from home, deal with that. We'll try that for a week, see if it works.
Right.
Same approach. Everybody's different. Respect the person who's on your team. Try to cater to them a little bit, and if it winds up being too costly, then get rid of them. Find somebody else.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So the key is how flexible are they willing to be? Are they willing to
Meet you halfway.
Meet you halfway. Go and give you the flexibility back that you're giving them. Maybe not right away, but not never.
Right.
That's not acceptable.
never. Be moving in a positive direction.
Right, move in the direction that works for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. That was cool. So that was way deeper than you guys saw.
Sorry.
I squeezed it out of you. All right. So, what are the... Oh, this is a good one. Oh, this is so good. So, I have not heard anybody give me a real answer on this crap ever. So,
All right, here we go.
What are the ethics and legal implications of cybersecurity counter-strikes?
Counter-Strike.
Ooh, I like this
So
one.
remember, most hackers are actually institutional hackers, and the institution is a government.
Guerrilla.
There's a cyber war out there. Countries are attacking each other. Sometimes it's independent, business-oriented organizations, but they're never small these days. Most attacks are from large organizations with large goals.
And you're talking about guerrilla individual hackers.
I'm talking about we're talking about individuals possibly working for a company, possibly not working for a company, or even people who are organizing as a group of hackers as cyber militia.
But on their own accord, in order to protect patriotically.
Well, is it patriotic? I don't know. This is the question. So I'll give you the quick example. So the quick example is you're working for an organization, one of your servers gets popped, cybersecurity is like, fuck those guys, I'm going to get them. And turns around and tries to hack them back, and may succeed. The broader thing is now that person's done it a few times successfully. Now they get the whole company involved. Now the company is attacking the other organization. So you literally have, whether it's another company or even possibly a government, or it can even escalate further, and now maybe companies are working together as a collaborative unit, attacking a whole other country.
So I can actually cite an example where I actually felt morally vindicated, where I actually did this, where I felt morally in the right.
Wow.
Okay, go for it.
So you got your answer finally.
Yes.
So I don't know about legally, but morally I felt in the right here.
Okay, go ahead.
So this was one of our clients had a WordPress site that was compromised, which is all the time. They never keep that crap up to date. But
yeah, WordPress is the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you need a solid strategy.
So they were compromised, but what the guy did was he pointed it to a remote database server in the Ukraine, where he basically manned in the middle his WordPress database.
Ah, okay, I see.
And the way he was doing it is this single database was set up as a WordPress multi-site. You know how you can have multiple domains on a single WordPress install?
Right.
Okay, so the database was set up as WordPress multi-site. The regular WordPress install wasn't. I don't know how he got that working. I don't know what magic he did. But the database on his end had data for over 800 websites that the hacker obviously had pwned.
God.
So I already found the issue. I had a backup copy of the guy's database. I restored it, pointed it back, reinstalled WordPress, blah, 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 blah. But when I was done, I had this guy's database credentials because they were in the WordPress config file. So I go onto his database server and I drop the tables. Drop the whole database.
Oh, wow.
So basically, all those other 800 pwned sites, instead of being man-in-the-middled by this guy, are just going to go down. They're going to look at it and they're going to see something's wrong.
Right. So you actually set up a red flag by doing that.
Yeah. So
and simultaneously screwed the hacker. So
yeah.
you did both.
So while I was technically hacking because I used the credentials to drop his database.
No, the first thing is, of course, one thing that most people don't realize, but the people in the business do realize, is that it doesn't necessarily mean this guy was in the Ukraine. He could.
No, yeah, of course.
He could have been from anywhere.
Yeah, the database server was in the Ukraine, but he could have been anywhere.
If you've got 100 attacks and 80 of them are for Russia, I bet 80 of them aren't from Russia.
Yeah,
they're probably
using
compromised Russian servers as a front.
A compromised database server, or yeah.
There's usually multiple hops in this.
And that's the biggest issue with hackback, is that attribution is hard for skilled people to do.
Right.
For a
wait. Say that again. Listen to this part. Listen to Isaac.
Attribution is hard for skilled people to do. For people who aren't in this industry and have the experience, it's even practically impossible.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I can.
What about an
attest to
example where they don't know they're pwned and now they'll know?
I mean, that sounds good.
I mean, honestly, that part of what you said, if there was any moral ambiguity to what your intentions or what you were doing, you erased it with that. You clearly you were trying to do the right thing. You're trying to warn these other sites. Holy crap, you guys are all owned. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, I could fabricate a scenario where you did the wrong thing, but I don't know that that's the case. It's been my experience. If what Isaac's saying, and it is a lot more independent people out there than the cyber warfare I'm imagining, then you probably did the right thing. But it could have been a government. It could have been a government, and that was a front for a really important anti-terrorist organization, and you just fucking shit-canned them because they didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Yeah, vigilantism has a place, and I mean, this is a community that has, for the longest time, existed without borders, without regulation, without all the rest of it, and it was...
It still has no borders.
It still
has no regulation, not effectively.
And you were talking about, the advantages of anonymity and the requirements and so forth. I mean, you can do this sort of stuff anonymously if you know what the hell you're doing, but you don't know who's on the other side of that. And if you personally feel wronged and you can go out and prevent that from happening, go for it. I'm one of those people who has issues with things like responsible disclosure, which is a more modern notion of bug reporting,
giving people a window.
Yeah, so you back in the day when you had an attack or a vulnerability and you threw it up on one of the mailing lists, either privately or publicly, the manufacturer, the 0 day was in the wild, and the manufacturer did not have the opportunity to get the patch out before you released it.
Right.
And there's this whole culture that came forward for something called responsible disclosure, which is already a term that just irks me because it implies that doing anything other than this method is irresponsible.
So I should have reached out to all 800 domain owners individually?
Right, and that just becomes stupid,
Yeah.
It's how much work are you supposed to do in order to mop up somebody else's mess?
Yeah. I could have just left it alone, but I kind of felt guilty to leave it up.
I want to hug this conversation. This is great.
I've got no... good for you. There may or may not have been situations in the past where I've recognized a botnet and had the C2 and decided to use it to patch the systems that were violated. Hey, look, there's 30,000 machines that all listen to me. What command shall I give it? Apply patch KB 114, and just shut the thing down.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend a day, you can spend a couple of days just patching a horrendously out of patch Windows server.
And you've won. You also wind up with very entertaining situations where just to kind of like you threw out there your view of the world and like who the good guys and bad guys were.
Let me source it so that way maybe that'll help you with this. And, I want you to continue what you're saying, but my view is from cybersecurity analysts sitting down talking about this, looking at who's attacking, which countries the attacks are coming from, the likelihood that they're state sponsored, and it's specifically from the Verizon report that this is coming from, which may or may not be complete bullshit. I have not sourced that at a level where I can say it is not bullshit. I may not be capable of that because I'm not an intelligence organization. I'm a dude.
Yeah, APTs and nation-state actors are certainly out there and they're operating, but I wouldn't say that that's sort of even notionally.
So you think maybe I got a little overexcited?
It's sexy to talk about APTs and things like that. But you know,
No, I don't think it is.
Good. You know, random guys. Throwing
it's not sexy, huh?
I just thought I'd let you know that.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Don't
keep it real.
But like the random person just like throwing a search into Shodan looking for known bugs and then like popping a bunch of WordPress sites is still much more common.
Right.
But you wind up in very weird situations sometimes where there is a story in the world, it's not actually mine, where a small manufacturer had a control system for valves and gates and this whole 9 yards. They had a security pen test done, and they discovered that the machine was thoroughly penetrated and was mining, I think it was Monero or one of the non-Bitcoins.
One of the altcoins, yeah.
Yeah, but they also noticed that the machine was being patched and managed and maintained. To a degree and level that, like, you know, an IT administrator would be proud of.
Right.
And so now
But be careful here, because this is the trend.
Yeah.
This is what most of the time is happening with Bitcoin mining vulnerabilities now.
Because, like, you got into this thing, you want to keep somebody else from coming in and taking it. This is your resource.
So this is an important point, and this is something that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I hope you can pick back up. Is that okay?
I think I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah, you are really good at that. I'm sorry. But this is an important point because this is like something that everybody from people at the bottom who don't, non-technocrats who don't know what the hell's going on, all the way to the people in the industry who are pretty high up. I mean, this is what happens now. It wasn't like this before. You would get a vulnerability, your machine would be popped, and then you get another vulnerability and someone else would pop your machine, and they might just ignore each other. You might literally have multiple hackers on your machine at the same time, right? That is not the case now. Any machine that's been popped with the intent of doing Bitcoin mining, the first thing they do is harden not only patch, but harden your machine against other attackers, because any other Bitcoin miners that come in there
steal their CPU cycles,
cut their profits in half. Right, and you multiply that across the entire server farm, you just lost half your money. So you're not going to allow that to happen. So the first they actually make harder systems than normal people do.
Right. So now you have executives who have an interesting question to answer, which is, well, our IT staff is clearly incompetent because these guys managed to get in and take control of these servers. The servers are still doing everything they're supposed to do. They're now patched and maintained, and all we're really paying is the electrical price for having the Bitcoin miner on there. So did we really just contract out our IT security services to a bunch of crypto miners?
This is terrifying, but I agree with you.
And are we okay with that?
Yeah. I mean, in some situations.
And sometimes the answer to that is, yeah.
The answer is, fuck it. Yeah.
So it's an interesting world in which we're living right now.
And this is also important because this is the kind of thing that like non-technocrats would. I mean, they can't even understand this conversation. So if you're let's say you're a person with a 401k investing in a company, trying to understand what that company's doing and if they have a sound strategy, and their company, I mean, this is a real choice that companies are going to be making right now. They're not going to admit it later if they get caught. But if you don't know that this is a possibility, you're never going to see the signs that they're way understaffed IT-wise, and you're just gonna think your retirement is safe, and then you're gonna find out that the hackers also realized there was valuable data on all of the machines that they own, and then sold that data on top of what they're doing for their Bitcoin mining, and now your company's worth zero, and you've lost your retirement.
Yep.
So like this is why I wanted to stop and make that point about it. It's a really important point. You know, the hackers' modus operandi has completely 180'd if they're interested in crypto mining.
It's kind of like having a retired locksmith break into your house, set up in your spare bedroom, replace all the locks in your house, hand you keys, and he just lives there now.
Right.
It's fine.
But he did the tile in the bathroom. It looks great.
No, it's great. You know,
it looks great.
You don't know his name.
He even remembers to put the toilet paper on the toilet paper roll.
You know,
He's really quiet.
He's really quiet. Like, you know, he's the best roommate you have ever had. Yeah, occasionally you're
where's your sandwich?
Like,
where's my sandwich?
Half
whatever. It's worth it. The bathroom looks great.
Your Sunny D is like half empty by the time you get home.
He's drinking out of the milk.
Right, but you know what? Nobody else is breaking in.
That's right.
The dog's fed.
Right.
Like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Not even sure it's a he.
Yeah.
It could be. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But you know, it's fine. If you're okay with that, like, it's pretty cool.
Okay, that is not where I thought this was all going to go.
Yeah, I like doing that sometimes.
He's doing his patriotic duty.
Yes.
Yeah, by hacking your machine and living in your house.
The best employee we've
living in
ever
your smart
hired.
house. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. This is one you guys were not expecting. I guarantee you have not heard this before.
Okay.
So you haven't heard this either. This might become, I don't know, man. We have so many great zingers. I could just cut this whole thing into clips and it would be entertaining.
You might have to. It's 3 hours long.
Right. Right. So yeah, I've got to cut into a lot of clips. So, of course, something everybody in Silicon Valley is very green, and I'm not just picking on them. Any tech mecca claims to be very green. You know, oh, it's a meritocracy. Oh, we're all wonderful. We're doing all the right things at all the right times. But of course, on the other hand, what people in the industry know is that as time has been going on, a lot of the big tech giants have been shortening the window in which they diagnose a server as being bad. So what do? They end up just throwing these things out after an hour of diagnosis. Now, I've worked in shops that had no budget, and actually that's not what you do.
Right.
When you have no budget, you tend to supplement the machine budget with the IT budget, and people are working on machines for days before they get rid of them. You know, you're replacing fans, you're replacing hard drives. You know, a problematic machine stays, but with the big tech giants, they throw them out. So it creates e-waste, right? We have all these circuit boards and electronics, and you know, with lead solder and hopefully gold plating to justify the cost of recycling. But even recyclers are sometimes liars. If you actually search on this, you'll find there's tons of sites about recycling programs that look great on the surface but aren't so great underneath. So some of them are almost fronts, basically, to just get rid of the crap and dump them.
Oh,
in some third world
environmental
country.
green.
Yeah.
Money green. Okay.
Yeah, not literally green. Not Silicon
I'm sorry,
green.
it's like
environmental
Silicon
green.
Valley green. All I see is like stacks of bills.
Right. So I'm talking about recycling circuit boards.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm talking about. And then their policies are just basically just throwing crap out when it creates a problem. So there's a double interest. So now you're invested in this one viewpoint. So here, the first one is, should they be forced to spend longer diagnosing and repairing machines? If they're not sure it's hardware, should they be allowed to just pitch a machine when it starts making
I think
problems?
that might be the wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
I agree with the end goal, but I think trying to lengthen diagnostic windows, that's going to be very different from company to company. That's not something that can be easily regulated and measured.
But I mean,
especially when you're talking about different types of devices and different types of breakdowns.
What's this allowed shit?
If the better way maybe.
I mean, I'm not saying
also stifling.
regulation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying encouraging.
The better way maybe.
How short can your window be before you're just being ridiculous and you're like, screw it, and just throw it out right away. The time it takes to pull it out of the rack and throw it in the bin is.
I mean, the better way
Most of
maybe
them don't even do
regulation.
that. They just leave it sitting in there.
Yeah, or that. Yeah, they just build the whole thing in a container and just leave the dead machines there and build another container.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a
So,
good opportunity for the private sector to step up. Here is an ideal opportunity for the private sector to step up.
So now here's the flip side, which is that I'm convinced that. Sorry, you go ahead. Tell you.
What I was going to say is, if you really want regulation to be the answer here, I don't think diagnostic window is the right solution. It would have to be something along the lines of paying a fee when you dispose of the devices.
Yeah, I like that too.
A disposal tax.
Yes.
Okay.
Disposal fee,
So here, that's perfect. So disposal fees are good because they make my next question much easier because it creates a pattern of traceability. So conversely, in my opinion, in the future, landfills will be mines. So
Why not?
if a landfill is physically contained away from the rest of the environment, if you're part of an advocate group that's advocating to get rid of a landfill or to reduce the amount of stuff that goes into a landfill, aren't you robbing the wealth of future people by taking away the junk in the landfill? I'm not talking about basic recycling like a shipping container where it's just a piece of metal. Obviously, you can recycle that, but something at some
it's gotta
point
go somewhere.
there's some horizon of diminishing returns or recyclability where you're literally just stealing from the future beneficiaries of the mine, which will probably be local, right? Remember, everybody spends an enormous amount of oil shipping things from place to place to place,
Right,
and we're creating these piles of raw materials that are disorganized. But once organization is no longer a problem, isn't that a resource now and not
Yes.
a problem?
You're concentrating mineral wealth in these sanitary landfills, and all right, cool.
All right.
Yeah,
That's
but
nice.
But as long as the act of mining isn't just kicking up all the other stuff in there back into the environment.
Well, so right now we're in pouring atoms mode, right? Everything we do is chemistry. You know, you pour some of this with some of this, and then there's byproducts and side effects and contamination. I'm talking about a placing molecule world or a placing atom world where, you know, nanoscale machines where essentially it's like biology, and it just, you know, a bacteria goes in, bacteria eats the stuff, bacteria poops out the raw elements, the raw elements are carried to someplace safe in an organized way, and now you have materials.
You can do this kind of recovery with plasma converters now,
Oh, is it cost effective though?
in some cases.
Okay, well, so maybe people are robbing, maybe environmentalists are robbing landfills now. Yeah, I don't know. So,
I mean, the waste has to go somewhere anyway, even if it's not going in this one particular landfill.
right. Well, you can not let it be waste in the first place. So,
Like immediately
so typically what's happening,
recycle
like
it.
New York City is one of the bigger
Right.
recyclers. So what's happening in cities in general is they pass laws and they require more and more recycling regulations. And it becomes more and more labor intensive for the recyclers. You know, you see massive piles of clear bags of recycled materials
Okay.
in New York City. Not saying that's bad, but at some point maybe it is bad. Maybe at some point we do reach a point where, you know, don't
Diminishing
tech
returns.
companies want to have that short window, you know? Is it really that helpful to prevent them from having that short window?
Well,
You know,
e-waste
for
in
that
New
short
York is its own
diagnosis.
political nightmare because
Well, any big city.
New York in particular, are you familiar with how you deal with electronic waste in the city of New York?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have had to drive a car full of old computer junk to one of their official Disney, yes, that's the abbreviation, Disney, DSNY.
DSNY collection
E-waste collection
centers.
centers, and it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
It's a
and, you
huge
know,
pain in the ass.
because-
Long Island, just throw it in the trash bag. Bye.
Because there is one contractor that got a sweetheart deal
Is that
in the
what it
Bloomberg
is?
administration,
Motherfucker.
and in order to reduce the costs for that contractor, they require citizens to drop off the e-waste rather than have it picked up from various places. Hooray for politics.
Yay, politics.
But I mean, if you really want to start looking at this problem, you have to reduce the cost of donation.
Right.
Because certainly throughout the 90s and the early 2000s, you had large corporations who would do tech refresh on the desktop. And these are perfectly good computers. And the question is, well, why don't you donate them to schools? And the answer is because the amount of paperwork you have to go through to do all the depreciation of the asset, to get it off your books, find a 501c3 who's able to accept them, write the paperwork, the whole 9 yards, just throw it in the goddamn dumpster, is the answer that most of these executives say. It's like, what's it cost us to throw it away? Nothing, after it's
Yeah, but I mean, if
depreciated.
you had a facilitator doing that for you, if you
Sure.
had a third-party private sector.
If you can incentivize that,
Yeah,
you solve this.
incentivize that.
You
That's
solve this
another,
problem.
yeah, I mean, if you wanted to have government involvement, you could have
That
them
sounds great.
provide grants to companies to
Yeah.
do this.
Right.
Yeah, or like.
But that's not what you're saying. That's not what's happening now.
That's not what's happening. But that now you've got rather than a regulatory environment saying no, you must do it this way. It's like actually we'd love for you to give this stuff
Right.
to donate it to some third party.
Yeah,
who
we'll
can,
come
like-
and collect it even.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Well, there's a huge incentive for the third
We
parties
want
also.
to streamline your ability to donate.
The
this.
older the equipment, the better, because older equipment sometimes has gold and silver in it.
Uh-huh.
Right.
Yeah, so they'll pay you, like older older circuit boards backwards past a certain year, they'll pay you $15 to $20 per circuit board, per like motherboard size circuit board, for just to turn them in.
Yeah,
So they're
well, no
actually
one wants
making
those
money.
kinds of computers
Aside
anyway,
from whatever
though.
contract they
Right.
got, they're actually making money on the stuff too.
Yeah.
But going back to your undiagnosed server problem, you got 50 machines, all of which have failed inexplicably. I'm pretty sure 40 of them can be cobbled together out of the parts from all the rest.
Right. So the
that's
question is, are
40
you willing to
servers.
invest the labor? There's no incentive. If there's no incentive to recycle, then
The corporation isn't going to, but a 501c3 who can then turn around and resell perfectly functioning server to a third party, pocket the money for their not-for-profit. That's a thing that can happen.
Right.
But again, the incentive isn't there because for the corporation to do the donation, they're now spending money to get rid of garbage.
Right.
There's a problem with that. Don't do that.
Right. All right. So we got maybe 15 minutes left. Yeah.
Dot.
What?
You're on the dot. You got it exact.
Really?
The second.
Wow.
15 minutes.
Maybe I'm the robot.
2:45.
Stabby. All right.
I'm the hacker and I'm the only pure human here. I'm tired.
I'm sorry. Are you done? Because we can.
No, I got 15 minutes in
Yeah,
me.
15. Yeah. All right. I'm excited. This is gonna be good. So, okay, I did that one. Oh, okay. This is good. So, why are there no boilerplate contracts outside of tech? This is what I want to know.
So I actually read this during lunch and talked about it with some of the attorneys. Like one of them, hey John, Jonathan Hurt.
What's up?
What's up, John? He said that they had like 360 contracts,
Okay.
and I think he thought that they were.
Boilerplate contracts. So it doesn't seem very popular. So it's extremely popular in software, and particularly, open source doesn't exist without boilerplate contracts.
Right.
So in case you don't know, GPL or BSD or any of the open source contracts that people are familiar with are boilerplate contracts.
You're just talking about regular contracts like real estate, like Bloomberg forms. And things
Right.
Like that?
But what I'm talking about, so the thing that interests me in particular is the entertainment industry.
Okay.
So it seems like there's no boilerplate contracts in the, doing this show, thinking about how to profit share between multiple people. Whenever you have a project in the arts that takes more than one person, where you can't be a one-man show.
Right.
Right. Wouldn't it be great if there was a contract that everybody just used all the time? And it seems like that just never materialized out of Hollywood. And I realize that people get paid different amounts of money, but other than that, who's controlling it? Who's controlling the intellectual property that's resulting from that? Seems like a pretty predictable problem. It seems like something that's stunningly predictable compared to open source. It would be the same kind of situation. You don't want your work to be orphaned. You don't want your, you want to make money off your work. You want to be compensated if you're giving your work to a bigger project. And other than that, and you want to get paid. And other than that, if there's payment going around, if there isn't, there isn't. It just seems like a simple problem. Well, I'm just very curious why there hasn't.
IP is hard because there's different rights that you can segment off based on your creative work. One of the simpler parts of that industry is music. And even that has a variety of rights that can be assigned, purchased, bought, sold, aggregated, and repackaged. There's the underlying written work, there's performance, there's different applications.
Right.
So if you've got a recording and you want to sell it as a recording,
To a show, to a movie,
those are sync rights as compared to
in part, in full.
Yeah. And so there are some standard language things, but there's an industry of lawyers who just specialize in doing this.
It just seems like that they're doing more harm than good. That this really needs an open source kind of
Are you
revolution.
trying to take food away from these hardworking lawyers, sir?
Yes.
Lawyers are fine people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they deserve
They are.
But you know what?
every
If the
penny that they can
entertainment-
extract from this.
If we're really in a
Yeah.
Okay, good.
If we're really in a labor glut and we really shorten the work week or do something like UBI and we're all sitting around with more time to relax and unwind and to think, there's going to be more entertainment consumed. And if there's more entertainment consumed, it's going to float all boats. There's going to be plenty of work for the lawyers. Maybe it's time where we start treating it like, there's always going to be more work for the lawyers.
Well, here's an example of a somewhat more cookie-cutter license agreement.
There's plenty of open source work for the lawyers, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's not like it went away. It just changed what it was. Now they're working with the boilerplates and seeing if people are accurately living up to them.
And you know, a great example of licensing for creative content for reproduction and demonstration would be YouTube,
Right.
where you're
Commons.
uploading. Here you go. You can choose this license. You can choose this license. You can choose this license. And
Right.
we have rights because we're YouTube and all the rest of this. And you can kind of check your box and do all the rest of it. Is anybody happy with that?
Well, the problem is that they're just a distribution component. What I'm talking about is streamlining the whole industry. Getting to a point where you can have. To me, I don't really see a reason why a movie can't be made contractually through it's not the lawyers I'm attacking. I'm not attacking anyone. It's not the lawyers I'm attacking. It's the producers. I don't really see why we need them. If everybody's willing to contribute to a group project, I don't really see why you need to have a big pile of money if everybody's willing to contribute their labor.
You remember that question you had about how you manage teams of people who don't get along?
Yeah.
That's what producers actually do.
Right. Shut up, sit down, and get to work.
Well, no.
Ultimately, that you hear those stories come out.
It's more like the director doesn't like to work with this DP, so how do you make the DP happy along with the actual director? The screenwriter has his own issues, blah, 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 and the producer's just pulling his hair out trying to get all these people to actually work together.
Right.
It's one of the least highly regarded and most essential roles in Hollywood is a good producer.
So what you're saying is I just baseball coached that guy, and he's doing more work than I realized.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Sorry, guy. Well, we have to get him a boilerplate too then, all right.
Yeah, you can turn everything into the tech industry, but then everything's going to be the tech industry, and the tech industry is kind of terrible.
Maybe this is a boilerplate that requires arbitration, and the producer would be the arbiter.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
They seem happy. Let them do their thing.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
You want to disrupt Hollywood,
I just don't think it costs $500 million to make a movie. I just don't buy it. I don't really think it costs.
Well, you don't have to buy it. It's $500 million.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I don't have to pay $500 million.
Nobody buys it.
I just don't buy it. I don't buy that it really costs that much. I really think it costs a lot less. Some of it's the actors, but you know what? I mean, acting is... I bet for every actor we know about, there's 5 we don't.
I'm looking at some of the top grossing movies of recent time, and I'm going to say the acting in those movies was not terribly good. Really impressive explosions and special effects.
Here's the weird thing. So here's where I think it's going. So I think that the industry is completely depending on superhero movies to protect itself right now from the fact that the only thing that's keeping the movie business in business is special effects. Because they have such a huge overhead, because there's a very limited number of special effects artists that know how to get the movie work done.
The studio, it's nice for a studio.
It's very hard to get enough money to get everyone into the same room to do something.
Yeah, it's nice for a studio to have a blockbuster, but it's still the bread and butter movies that are kind of generating consistent revenue. And unfortunately, a lot of those are reboots and rewrites and
I just saw a great synopsis on this. Apparently, reboots and rewrites, it's an economic downturn thing.
Yeah,
it's what happens. That's what people like. They're trying to relive their fantasies from when they were younger.
Lion King.
Yep. Disney's just reacting. Well, now Disney may be just driving that gravy train, but
well, Disney just opened the vault.
Ooh, nice.
The Disney Vault.
The Disney Vault.
They're like, oh wow, we got a lot of good crap in here. Let's remake all these, and we'll have twice as much vault.
We're gonna need more vaults.
Move Walt's frozen head aside. We've got the new Beauty and the Beast coming in now. Yeah, it's you can be cynical, but they got their thing going.
These are good answers. Thanks. I actually didn't think you had so much insight on this. I didn't realize you had so much insight on this. I really want to see. You see, understand what I'm saying?
Things I dislike attract my attention.
I just see that the opportunity for even more greatness is there, just like there was with open source.
Don't try to turn another industry into the tech industry. The tech industry is trying to do that already, and they keep falling flat on their face. Thank God.
Yeah. All right.
They're independent.
Well, you put it that way, you make me sound like a monster.
Well,
Maybe I am a monster.
You know what? They're independent movies too, and
Yeah.
they're, you know, like maybe the next wave is going to be.
There's a lot of really good independent films
Yeah.
that are coming out nowadays.
Yeah, and you know,
documentaries are having a
maybe
huge
this is
resurgence.
just me maturing and recognizing that a lot of the best movies are independent films.
Yeah.
So
Smaller scale distribution is becoming much easier. I mean, look at one of the largest studios on Earth right now is Netflix, who greenlights anything.
yeah. And it's awesome. Some of it I love.
Yeah, there's an environment
I mean, I
where the
don't think the,
producer is also the director and probably the screenwriter.
Stranger Things never would have happened without Netflix. You know, Umbrella Academy never would have happened without Netflix. I don't think.
And
that's
again,
what
Fuller
exists.
House never would have happened with Netflix, and we have that. So
What?
whatever.
A lot of them go to Sundance Festival and then Netflix just buys it. That's usually what happens.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, is it just the first episode that goes to Sundance Sundance
Usually
Festival?
you make a few. It depends on the show or movie.
Right, but still, but Netflix is the one that buys them. They wouldn't be going the next step.
Yeah, I
without
think
that.
Netflix is
distribution is
willing to
changing.
take more risk because they've managed to streamline it.
Yeah. Well, also, it's reflected in their tech culture. Netflix has that tech culture. I don't know if you probably don't know this. So they have the chaos monkey model, where it's basically everyone. Your job is being Loki, and you're there to break the system. You're just there to throw anything you can in the
Nice,
system and to
nice.
come up with new stuff.
Great.
And unlike a lot of other places that kind of have like a change control system and everyone has a meeting and talks about the impact, they say, fuck it, just do it. And if you break it, they pat you in the back and say, good job breaking it. Now we got to figure out how to not let that happen again as a way to prevent attacks.
Nice.
So it's almost like they're doing that with their movie model, which is great. And I mean, I'm excited about it. I
Try
want
everything,
more.
see what sticks.
More.
Right. Well,
You know?
Netflix is being, I guess, blacklisted. I guess from the other networks who are.
And that's why I want them to win.
Right.
I really think they have some great.
Yeah, did you hear they were considering blacklisting Netflix from the Emmys?
Oh, I love. Keep talking. You're singing my song. This makes me like it more.
They ended up having to roll back on it due to public outrage, but they were. I'm not sure if it was the Emmys or the Oscars. I can't remember.
Right.
But the reasoning was, the Emmys. It must have been the Oscars. It couldn't have been the Emmys. So the reasoning was, whatever award show it was, the show must have been an actual theater release. It couldn't be a straight-to-television movie. Sort of like, well, is Netflix a theater release? Is Netflix theatrical?
I don't know.
Technically.
I treated.
But there was no Netflix when the Oscars were out.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. I treated the third movie. What the heck was the name of those movies? The ones with the monster, and then there was the alien invasion with John Goodman.
Cloverfield.
Cloverfield. Yeah, I treated the third Cloverfield sequel like it was just another movie.
It was. It was. They just kind of took advantage of it.
It may have been a bad one. I didn't put that on my list of reasons that Netflix is awesome, but it wasn't bad either. But either way, it was a movie. That was a movie. I don't care what they say or how they categorize it. Clearly, that was meant to be a feature release from the start. It doesn't matter that it wasn't in theaters. They just took that energy and money that would have been in theaters and put it into Netflix goodwill.
So you'd really just like to see disruptive or industries being disrupted by technology.
Beard stroke. Beard stroke.
Say more things.
So basically, what Netflix was doing.
Perhaps beard stroke.
So what Netflix was doing to get around this is they were actually having one-day theatrical releases in like one theater somewhere, just so that they could say they had a theatrical release.
Hey,
Good for
you know
them.
what? If the Oscars is going to be hyper-technical, then let them.
So that's why the Oscars were going to pass a rule that explicitly banned Netflix. Just no Netflix was going to be the rule.
This is also the award show that decided they didn't even want to do the technical awards as a public thing anymore.
Yeah.
They were just going to just quietly, we'll send you the mail. It's fine.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Real choice people in that.
Yeah. I mean, well, in a way, this is kind of cool. I hope that they give them a little bit of restriction because if you think about what happened in the late ¡60s and early '70s with them trying to restrict stock car racing, we got stuff like the Plymouth Superbird because basically a race car that you could walk into a showroom and buy and drive on the street because they needed to do that because it was the only way they could get it into the race. So yeah, I'm all for it. They want to be jerks to Netflix and deny them Emmys based on some technicality. Great. Well, they'll be the equivalent of these blockbuster Netflix movies, coming out and crushing Hollywood and embarrassing them. Right? All right. Well, anyway, I think that's it. I think I had a blockchain question, but I think we're out of time. So I hope.
Is it a quick one?
Well, Is any blockchain question a quick one? All right, I'll throw it out there. What centralized information service has been the most badly corrupted?
Blockchain.
Okay, thank you.
night,
Have a
folks.
Good night, everyone.
and could use a redo based on blockchain. You don't like the blockchain, man. You've been really negative on it. Can you tell us why you've been...
Because it's become this fad thing that people use to get funding and be buzzword compliant. The whole point of the blockchain is it's a distributed ledger.
Right.
But the application that all these corporations are trying to use it for are basically a database. It's like, we're going to run this blockchain. If you're the only guy running it, it doesn't need to be a blockchain, it's just a database.
Right. Agreed, totally.
It's when you have potentially adversarial participants who need to share this data and keep it amongst themselves that you need a blockchain.
where you don't trust all the participants.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where they
But
don't
if
trust
it's
each
like,
other.
yeah, we're Facebook and we're going to come up with our own currency and it'll be on a blockchain. Why?
Don't buy
You
the
run the
Facebook
whole
currency.
thing.
It's a gift card.
Yeah, it's a gift.
That's what they are. It's a gift card model.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and actually, if you look at the gift card model is just a company store. It's a freaking company store all over again. They're treating us like coal miners. That's why I hate Facebook. I'm not a coal miner. I'm smarter than that. Sorry, guys. But they'll find a way to rope me in. I'll be
Yeah, they
buying
will.
it.
Yeah.
I'll have
Come in.
Facebook bucks at some point because I'll have to because their network is so huge.
They already had Facebook bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, blockchain has absolutely no purpose unless you're in a scenario where multiple people that you don't trust need write access to a database.
Yeah,
Right.
that's it.
That's it. That's the
And
only
it's
time
a-
blockchain is
Which
needed.
is pretty much the implementation of all civil corruptible events.
And it's a fairly limited set of applications, frankly.
Well, the reason it's limited is because of the poison well, because you can throw junk data in with the good data. Right? You can
Sure, but I mean,
if you're not really specific about data typing, that's where blockchain can go wrong, because people can throw kiddie porn in with titles, or whatever
who cares?
whatever your blockchain.
Like, don't decode that one in that particular way.
Right.
I mean, for currency, it's effectively an account ledger, and you're moving these fake tokens around accounts, and then anybody can look at the ledger and see who has everything. That's a great way to do it. I thought the argument for logistics was interesting. Because again, you have potentially adversarial participants in this network of
That was IBM's
trade.
project, right?
Yeah, IBM was trying to do logistics that way, which is interesting. You got a container, you're going to sign off on it. Somebody bought this, somebody bought that, and maybe I honestly don't know how you'd implement that. Like, I certainly get currency, but you're going to have logistics set up that way. Right, maybe that to me is a distributed ledger. Some company doing an ICO, or
Well, that was really hot till the SEC started going, no. No.
yeah. Or some of these other coins is like, oh yeah, we're going to fully control this particular coin. It's like, well, why the hell is it a blockchain? Just you have an account on this server, and there's the database, and you run the it's simpler that way. There's
Because
no
it's a
reason to
buzzword.
add all this complicated. Right, and it's a buzzword.
It's buzzword compliant.
It's buzzword compliant. It gets you funding because it's blockchain. Well, their stock price doubles.
It's like a feel good.
Exactly.
It's like, I hate to say it, it's an army of, just for every real technocrat out there, there's a fake one.
Yeah, and that frustrates me, and so I hear things like blockchain.
Sorry, it hurts to say that.
Getting
but-
ready to wrap it up. I'm tired.
Yeah, I think we're done.
it's sleepy night.
We're getting. Steve is actually doing jumping jacks right now. No, I'm just kidding. He's just sitting there. He's like, get out! Stop it, guys! Thank you so much for being on. I really
problem.
appreciate it. It's been lots of fun. And next week we're going to be talking about a video game company and what it's like to be pros in the video game world. All right, thanks a lot, and see you next week. Good night.
Good night.